Hey, everyone! If you enjoy my quantum audiobooks, you can support me by becoming a Patreon member. Your support helps me keep creating, and you'll get exclusive perks. You can also access my audiobooks directly through Google Drive. Check out the link in the description. Now, let's get started.
New Orleans' figure flashed and turned into a golden stream of light, passing by the mountain-opening bull and punching its side at the same time. With this punch, he mobilized all the energy in his body, and the wind from his fist whistled like a sharp blade in a strong wind, carrying the momentum to tear everything apart. The huge body of the mountain-splitting bull was hit again. This time, its steps were obviously much slower. The golden fist mark left a deep dent on its side. Blood gushed out, dyeing the surrounding starry sky red. "Tianlu, now is the time," New Orleans shouted, with a hint of urgency in his voice. He knew that although they had the upper hand, the strength of the mountain-blasting bull should not be underestimated. If they relaxed even a little, they might lose everything. Upon hearing this, Xiang Tianlu suddenly jumped up like a flash of silver lightning and instantly appeared above Kaishan Sussi's head. He held the lightsaber high in his hand, with brilliant energy condensed at the tip of the sword, as if he wanted to split the starry sky in half. "Behead! 653". With a loud shout, the lightsaber, like the first ray of sunlight at dawn, cut through the sky and went straight for the head of the mountain bull. Wherever the sword light passed, the stars dimmed, and the space seemed to be split open by this sword. The mountain bull roared in despair. It felt the threat of death and kicked the ground frantically with its four hooves, trying to avoid the fatal blow. However, Xiang Tianlu's sword was already at a dead end and could not be avoided. The desperate roar of the mountain-cutting bull echoed in the void, shaking every inch of space. The stars seemed to be shaken by this force, and the flickering light dimmed a little. The lightsaber in Xiang Tianlu's hand seemed like an alien object, with unparalleled sharpness and brilliance, going straight for the vital point of the mountain-opening bull. The sword light was like a dragon, cutting through the sky, leaving a silver trail, which was the boundary between life and death. The huge body of the mountain-cutting bull looked clumsy under the sword light. It twisted its body with all its might, trying to avoid the fatal blow, but everything was doomed. The lightsaber pierced through the neck of the mountain-splitting bull, and blood gushed out like a fountain, dyeing the starry sky red, and also dyeing Xiang Tianlu's battle robe red. The huge body of the mountain-cutting bull trembled under the residual force of the sword, and its four hooves pedaled weakly, but it could no longer support its mountain-like body. "New Orleans," Xiang Tianlu shouted, with a hint of panting in his voice, but more of excitement and excitement. He knew that, at this moment, they had finally defeated this powerful monster. Hearing the sound, New Orleans jumped up like a golden lightning and instantly appeared on the other side of Kaishan Zongxing. He stared at the giant beast that was about to fall, his hands clenched into fists, and the vital energy in his body surged as if to tear the starry sky apart. New Orleans' fist hit the mountain-opening bull again, and this time it was a fatal blow. The wind from his fist was like thunder in a strong wind, carrying the power to destroy everything, completely defeating the huge body of the mountain-opening wild bull. The huge body of the mountain-opening bull finally fell down powerlessly, smashing the stars into pieces and raising dust. Its eyes gradually dimmed, and the flaming gaze went out at the last moment, leaving only deathly silence. At the place where the mountain-cutting bull fell, New Orleans and Xiang Tianlu stood quietly, watching the huge body gradually cool down, with an indescribable emotion welling up in their hearts. The aftermath of the battle gradually subsided. The starry sky returned to its former tranquility, and the stars twinkled again, as if singing for their victory. The two looked at each other, determination and hope flashing in their eyes. They know that this is just a small episode in their adventure, and there is still a long way to go, with both challenges and opportunities. "Let's go. We have to find a place to rest," New Orleans said softly, with a hint of fatigue in his voice, but more of anticipation for the future. Nodding to Tianlu, the two of them moved, and turned into two streams of light, flying towards the depths of the starry sky. Soon, they found a small village hidden in the mountains. The village is nestled against the mountains and beside the water, with smoke rising from the chimneys, blending in with the surrounding natural scenery like a beautiful painting. They landed at the edge of the village and looked at the quiet and peaceful scene, a warm feeling welling up in their hearts. Nuo-Lin and Xiang Tianlu smiled at each other and decided to rest here and prepare for the next adventure. The villagers were hospitable and provided Nuo-Lin and Xiang Tianlu with warm shelter and abundant food. With the care of the villagers, the two gradually recovered their strength and became more energetic. One morning, sunlight poured into the house through the window. Nuo-Lin and Xiang Tianlu sat in front of the window, enjoying this rare, quiet time. It's really beautiful here, refreshing and relaxing, Nuo-Lin said softly, gazing at the green mountains and clear waters outside the window. He nodded to Tianlu, a satisfied smile on his face. Yes, the fighting during this period has exhausted us both physically and mentally. It's great to be able to rest here for a while. Their conversation gradually turned to future adventures. Nuo-Lin's eyes sparkled with determination. We must continue to find our own path and pursue the endless sea of stars. Xiang Tianlu heard this, and his fighting spirit ignited in his eyes. That's right, we can't stay here forever. However, before we set off, we must prepare well to ensure that everything goes well. After some discussion, the two decided to buy some necessities in the village and learn about the surrounding terrain and conditions. They put on simple clothes provided by the villagers and integrated into the peaceful rural life. Walking on the paths of the village, Nuo-Lin and Shantian Road, you can feel the simplicity and harmony here. The villagers greeted them warmly. The children played and fought around them, and laughter filled the whole village. They came to a grocery store and picked out some dry food and medicine. The shop owner was a kind old man. He looked at Nuo-Lin and Xiang Tianlu with a smile and said, "Young men, where are you going?" Nuo-Lin smiled and replied, "We will explore far away and find our own path." Upon hearing this, the old man's eyes flashed with admiration. What an ambitious young man. However, the world outside is very dangerous, so you must be careful. Nuo-Lin and Xiang Tianlu nodded in thanks and continued their shopping journey. They walked through the entire village, feeling every bit of the scenery, and established deep friendships with the villagers. As night fell, a bonfire was lit in the village, and the villagers sat around 2.2, singing and laughing. Nuo-Lin and Xiang Tianlu also joined them, feeling this rare warmth and joy. Next to the campfire, Nuo-Lin and Xiang Tianlu sat among the villagers, with warm smiles on their faces, as if they had completely integrated into this peaceful land. The firelight shone on their faces, giving them a golden hue. Do you know? There's an ancient altar behind our village. Legend has it that it is the place where the ancient gods descended. An elderly villager suddenly spoke. His voice was filled with mystery and awe. Nuo-Lin and Xiang Tianlu both had a hint of curiosity in their eyes when they heard this. They looked at each other, as if they saw the urge to explore in each other's eyes. Really? Can we go and have a look? Nuo-Lin couldn't help but ask, his voice full of curiosity and desire for the unknown. The older villager smiled and nodded. Definitely yes, but it's a little dangerous there. You must be careful. Xiang Tianlu couldn't help but be curious. We will thank you for telling us this secret. As night falls, everything is silent. Nuo-Lin and Xiang Tianlu quietly left the village with flashlights and simple equipment, heading towards the ancient altar. They passed through the dense woods, crossed the rugged mountain roads, and finally arrived at the altar hidden in the mountains. The altar is ancient and solemn, made of blue stone, and time has left deep marks on it. Exotic flowers and plants grow around the altar, and the air is filled with a faint fragrance. The moonlight shines on the altar, adding a bit of mystery and sacredness to it. There's something really unusual here, Nuo-Lin said softly, his eyes sweeping across the altar, trying to find something. Xiang Tianlu also nodded. Yes, there seems to be some kind of power hidden here. They gathered around the altar and observed it carefully. Suddenly, a faint light surged from the center of the altar. The light gradually intensified and finally formed a dazzling beam of light that shot straight into the sky. What's going on? Nuo Lin asked in surprise, shock and curiosity flashing in his eyes. Xiang Tianlu also stared at the beam of light closely, his heartbeat quickening, as if something important was about to happen. At this moment, ancient incantations suddenly sounded from all around the altar. The voice was deep and powerful, like a call from ancient times. Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu looked at each other in bewilderment. Neither of them knew what was going on. However, as the spell continued, they felt a powerful force surging from the altar. This power was warm and powerful, as if it could cleanse their souls. They felt that their bodies and minds were becoming tougher and stronger under the nourishment of this power. Is this the power of the ancient gods? Xiang Tianlu murmured to himself, his eyes flashing with awe and excitement. Nuo Lin also took a deep breath. He felt the power and mystery of this force. Maybe, but we must be careful not to be confused by this power. They stared at the altar closely, afraid of missing any details. As the spell ended, the beam of light gradually dissipated. But that warm and powerful force still flows in their bodies, as if it has become a part of them. Just as the pillar of light dissipated and night once again enveloped the ancient altar, a cold wind suddenly swept in, bringing with it an ominous aura. Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu looked at each other and saw vigilance and alertness in each other's eyes. It seems that our arrival is not unknown, Xiang Tianlu whispered, his voice sounding a little dull in the night wind. Before he finished speaking, a dark shadow rushed out from the dense forest beside the altar, like a black lightning, and rushed towards the two of them. Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu reacted extremely quickly, and almost at the same time they dodged to the side, avoiding the sudden attack. The black shadow rolled in the air and landed steadily, revealing a ferocious face with a devilish light flashing in his eyes. He was wearing a black robe, the corners of which fluttered in the wind, like a messenger from hell. A mere mortal dares to trespass into the ancient god's altar. You are simply courting death. The demon Cultivator sneered, his voice full of disdain and arrogance. Nuo Lin stood side by side with Xiang Tianlu, staring at the demon Cultivator in front of them with sharp eyes. They knew that this war was inevitable. Demon Cultivator, what is your purpose in trespassing here without permission? Xiang Tianlu asked in a deep voice, his tone revealing determination and unyielding spirit. Upon hearing this, the demon Cultivator sneered. Purpose? Of course, it is to seize the power of the ancient gods, use this power for my own benefit, and become the overlord of this world. Before he finished speaking, the demon Cultivator suddenly rose up again, like a ferocious beast, and pounced on Nuo Lin. Nuo Lin dodged the attack of the demon Cultivator with a flash of his body, and at the same time, he threw a backhand punch at the demon Cultivator's side. The demon Cultivator snorted coldly and moved his body to the side strangely, easily avoiding Nuo Lin's attack. He swung his hand back, and a black demonic energy lashed towards Nuo Lin's face like a whip. Nuo Lin retreated quickly, waving his hands at the same time, forming an impenetrable air wall to block the attack of the evil spirit. Upon seeing this, Xiang Tianlu suddenly jumped up and rushed towards the demon Cultivator like a wild horse that had broken free from its reins. He clenched his fists, and with a whistling wind, he slammed into the demon Cultivator's chest with an overwhelming momentum. The demon Cultivator slightly tilted his body to avoid Xiang Tianlu's heavy punch, and at the same time kicked out towards Xiang Tianlu's abdomen. Xiang Tianlu rolled in the air and narrowly avoided the kick from the demon Cultivator. His body was unstable after he landed, but he immediately steadied himself and rushed towards the demon Cultivator again. The three of them fought fiercely on this ancient altar. The fist wind was whistling, the demonic energy was surging, and the air was filled with tension and murderous aura. Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu cooperated well, one attacking and the other defending, advancing and retreating according to their logic, and fought the demon cultivator to a standstill. Humph. A mere mortal dares to compete with me, a demon cultivator. You really overestimate your own abilities. The demon cultivator sneered again. He waved his hands, and a powerful demonic energy surged out like a raging tide, heading straight towards Nuo Lin and Shantian Road. Facing the evil spirit that surged like a tide, Nuo Lin's eyes became unusually cold. He knew very well that if he was entangled by this evil spirit, the consequences would be disastrous. He took a deep breath, and the power in his body seemed to be awakened at this moment. A golden light quietly emerged on his body's surface, forming a sharp contrast with the surrounding darkness. Let's go to the sky together. Nuo Lin growled, his voice filled with unquestionable firmness. His body suddenly accelerated, like a meteor streaking through the night sky, and rushed straight towards the demon cultivator. Golden light circulated around his body, forming a protective shield that dispersed the evil spirits that tried to invade his body. Xiang Tianlu was also cheered up when he heard this, and an indomitable fighting spirit also surged in his body. He quickly formed seals with his hands, and light blue lights danced on his fingertips. That was his unique way to fight against evil spirits. With his loud shout, the light turned into several sharp arrows, breaking through the air and shooting straight towards the demon cultivator. The demon cultivator snorted coldly, obviously not taking these attacks seriously. He waved his hands, and those sharp arrows exploded as if encountering an invisible barrier, turning into points of light and dissipating in the air. However, in this brief confrontation, Nuo Lin had already approached him and punched him hard in the chest with a force as powerful as thunder. The demon cultivator's body trembled slightly, obviously afraid of this attack. He moved his body to the side, narrowly avoiding Nuo Lin's fatal blow, but the remaining force of the punch still made his face change slightly. He roared angrily, and his hands turned into claws. The devil energy condensed and turned into two huge amounts of devil claws, which suddenly grabbed Nuo Lin. Nuo Lin was extremely agile. Almost at the moment when the devil's claws were about to touch him, he turned his body to the side and kicked out at the same time, hitting the devil's wrist. The kick was so powerful that it caused the demon cultivator's arm to tremble slightly, and the direction of the demon's claws also shifted. If you have some skills. The demon cultivator laughed in anger, his black robe fluttering without wind, and the demonic energy became stronger and stronger, as if it was going to swallow up the whole world. This is... Nuo Lin frowned, his golden pupils flashing with vigilance. He could feel the terrifying power contained in this demonic energy, enough to scare any living being. The seal under the altar has loosened, and the ancient monster is about to awaken. Xiang Tianlu's expression became solemn. He quickly formed seals with his hands, and the light blue light turned into complex runes, trying to stabilize the ever-widening crack. However, the demonic energy surged like a tide, and although the runes were bright, they were gradually eroded and their light dimmed. Nuo Lin stopped hesitating upon seeing this, and transformed himself into a streak of golden lightning, rushing straight into the depths of the crack, intending to stop the monster's awakening from the source. Nuo Lin, be careful. Xiang Tianlu's shout echoed in the night sky, but his eyes followed Nuo Lin's figure closely, and his hands continued to form seals, providing Nuo Lin with the final support. Inside the crack, it was dark as ink, with demonic energy swirling, as if countless pairs of eyes were watching in secret, waiting for their prey to arrive. Nuo Lin's golden light was particularly dazzling in the darkness. Every step he took was accompanied by the distortion and collapse of space. It was his ultimate control over power and his fearless move forward in the face of unknown challenges. No matter who you are, Today, I know Lin will seal you again. New Lin's voice echoed in the cracks with unquestionable determination. His fist was wrapped in a golden storm, and every time he swung it, it was accompanied by a roar in space. It was his most direct challenge to the monster. From the depths of the crack, a huge figure slowly emerged, with black chains wrapped around its body. Those were traces of an ancient seal, but at this moment they were gradually breaking due to the erosion of demonic energy. The figure let out a low roar, as if responding to New Lin's provocation, and also to his own impending freedom. The battle broke out again. This time, there were no fancy moves, only the most primitive collision and confrontation. The golden light of New Lin and the black demonic energy of the huge figure intertwined together, forming a shocking picture, as if the most intense confrontation between heaven and earth reached its peak at this moment. Crack! A crisp sound was a symbol that the ancient seal could no longer withstand the pressure and completely shattered. At that moment, the monster's figure was fully revealed, and the demonic energy emanating from it was more intense and more terrifying than before. New Lin, retreat quickly. Xiang Tianlu's voice exploded in New Lin's ears with unprecedented anxiety. But New Lin seemed not to hear it. All he saw was the monster that was about to escape, and his own determination to never give up. Today, either you die or I die, New Lin roared, and the golden light reached its peak at this moment, as if to illuminate the entire dark world. His figure and the monster's figure intertwined again, and the collision of fist wind and demonic energy produced aftershocks that made the entire altar tremble, as if it was about to collapse under this endless power. Amid the deafening roar, New Lin's fight with the monster became increasingly brutal. The golden light and the black evil spirit intertwined, just like the alternation of day and night. At this moment, light and darkness launched the most direct contest. You monster, don't even think about escaping my seal. New Lin roared. His fists were like golden meteors. Each swing carried the power to destroy the world. However, the monster did not seem to be afraid. Its eyes flashed with cunning light, and every attack cleverly avoided New Lin's vital points, as if it was playing with its prey. Ha ha, you tiny human. Do you think you could trap me? The monster's voice echoed in the crack, with endless ridicule and disdain. Its figure tumbled in the air, and black, evil energy attacked New Lin like tentacles, trying to devour him. New Lin's figure is agile, like a golden dragon, shuttling through the ocean of demonic energy. Each of his dodges was perfect, as if he could predict every move of the monster. However, as the battle continued, he gradually felt an indescribable fatigue beginning to erode his body. The power of this monster is so strong. New Lin was secretly shocked, but he did not back down. He knew very well that if the monster escaped, the consequences would be disastrous. Xiang Tianlu, how is the situation over there? New Lin called secretly in his heart, but the response to his call was silence. He knew that Xiang Tianlu was concentrating on stabilizing the seal of the moment and could not be distracted to respond. Outside the crack, Xiang Tianlu's face had turned extremely pale. He formed seals with his hands, and a light blue light danced on his fingertips, transforming into runes, trying to seal the crack again. However, the demonic energy surged like a tide, constantly impacting the runes, making his efforts seem extremely difficult. You must hold on. New Lin is fighting a monster in there. I can't let him be distracted. Xiang Tianlu gritted his teeth, his hands trembling slightly, but the determination in his eyes never wavered. Inside the crack, New Lin's battle with the monsters became more intense. The golden light and the black demonic energy intertwined together, forming a series of gorgeous light and shadows. However, behind this light and shadow is a contest between life and death, and the eternal confrontation between light and darkness. You monster, today is your end. New Lin roared, and he swung his golden fist again with endless power and anger. However, this time, Zhu did not choose to dodge. It opened its arms, and black demonic energy poured out like a torrent, colliding fiercely with Nuo Lin's golden fist. Boom! With a loud noise, the entire crack seemed to tremble. The golden light and the black demonic energy intertwined together to form a gorgeous curtain of light. However, under this light curtain, the two forces are in the most direct contest, a matter of life and death. Nuo Lin roared. He felt the powerful force from the monster, as if it was going to devour him completely. However, he did not give up. He clenched his teeth, clenched his hands into fists, and golden light once again surged out of his body, launching a final battle with the power of the monster. At this moment, a crisp sound suddenly came from outside the crack. The rune in Xiang Tianlu's hand finally couldn't withstand the impact of the demonic energy and began to crack. His face changed drastically, but it was too late to save the situation. Oh no, the seal is about to be broken. Xiang Tianlu was secretly shocked. He knew very well what this meant. However, at this moment, he suddenly felt a powerful force surging out from the crack, as if it was going to blow the entire altar away. Just as Xiang Tianlu was feeling turbulent, an unprecedented violent energy suddenly erupted from the crack. This force, with a destructive aura, instantly tore the air around the altar into pieces. An extremely dazzling golden light burst out from the depths of the crack, interweaving with the black demonic energy to form a doomsday picture. Then, accompanied by a deafening roar, the entire altar seemed to be lifted up by an invisible force, and then suddenly smashed down, with dust flying and gravel scattering. In the midst of this chaos and turmoil, a huge monster suddenly poked its head out from the crack. It was a Shaolin snake, covered with red scales, each of which seemed to contain a blazing flame. Its eyes were like two balls of burning netherworld fire, flashing with wisdom and cruelty. Its body coiled and meandered like a burning dragon. Wherever it passed, the air was ignited, leaving behind charred traces. This is a salamandra. Xiang Tianlu's face suddenly changed. He knew very well how terrifying this kind of monster was. Not only did they possess the power to destroy the world, they were also good at controlling fire. They were the real source of disaster. Inside the crack, Nuo Lin also sensed this new threat. He dodged another round of attacks from the monster and looked fiercely at the salamandra that had just appeared. Golden light circulated around his body, forming flowing runes, which were his double protection against darkness and fire. Humph! It really is raining cats and dogs. However, no matter whether it is a demon or a monster like you will not be able to leave alive today. Nuo Lin's voice was low and firm, golden pupils, shining with an unyielding light. The salamandra seemed to understand Nuo Lin's words. It opened its huge mouth and spit out a ball of blazing flames. The flames were so hot that they seemed to turn everything into ashes. Nuo Lin retreated quickly, forming seals with his hands. Golden light gathered at his fingertips and turned into a dazzling light shield, blocking the flames from his body. Bang! The flames hit the light shield, making a deafening explosion. A strong shock wave spread in all directions, shattering the surrounding rocks. Nuo Lin's body swayed slightly, but he immediately stabilized himself, and golden light once again poured out from his body like an inexhaustible source. Come on, let me see if your flame can burn my will. Nuo Lin roared. His figure was like golden lightning, and he rushed towards the salamandra in an instant. The golden fist was filled with endless power and collided with the flaming claws of the salamandra, making a crisp sound like metal clashing. The salamandra roared angrily. It felt the unyielding will and powerful strength of Nuo Lin, which made it even crazier. Its body twisted, and flames surged towards Nuo Lin like a tide, trying to drown him in the sea of fire. However, Nuo Lin shuttled through the flames like a fish, dodging at the right time, while looking for opportunities to counterattack. You monster! Nothing more than that. Nuo Lin sneered, and he accelerated again. The golden light condensed into sharp sword beams around him, like a golden storm, sweeping towards the salamandra. The salamandra roared in fear. It felt the terrifying power of the golden sword light. The sword light was not only extremely sharp, but also contained a special power that could restrain its flames. It tried its best, spitting out even more violent flames, trying to resist the golden storm. However, it was all in vain. The golden sword light was like the dawn, penetrating the barrier of fire and piercing deeply into the body of the salamandra. The salamandra let out a shrill scream. Its body began to shrink. The flames gradually went out and finally turned into a cloud of black smoke and dissipated into the air. Just as the body of the salamandra was about to completely dissipate, a strange and powerful wave suddenly surged out from its wreckage, as if some ancient and evil power was reviving. Not only did the black smoke not dissipate, but it began to spin rapidly, condensing into a more solid and hideous flame shadow. How is it possible? New Orleans' face suddenly changed. He had never seen such a strange and powerful resurrection power. It was beyond all his knowledge of this world. Ha ha, you tiny human, do you really think you could defeat me? The voice of the salamandra echoed in the flames, carrying endless ridicule and anger. Its eyes lit up again, and the netherworld fire was even more intense than before, as if it could see through all the vanity in the world. Nuo Lin retreated quickly. Golden light circulated around him, forming a flowing shield, and stared at the resurrected salamandra vigilantly. He knew very well that the opponent this time was no longer the same as before, but a more powerful and strange existence. No matter what you become, you will never escape today, Nuo Lin roared, and he quickly formed seals with his hands. Golden light gathered at his fingertips and turned into dazzling light symbols, dotted in the void like stars. While looking for an opportunity to counterattack, he kept forming seals with his hands, and golden light symbols flew and collided in the air, bursting out with dazzling light, trying to resist the invasion of the flames. Bang! 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 The flames and light symbols continued to collide and explode, making deafening sounds. The entire space seemed to be torn apart by this force, and the air became distorted and broken. You monster! Stop being so arrogant! Nuo Lin roared, and he accelerated again. The golden light condensed into a sharp sword light around him, like a golden lightning. Nansha Roman snake slashed away. The Shalaman snake snorted coldly and turned its body to the side, easily dodging the golden sword light. At the same time, it opened its huge mouth and spit out a more intense and destructive flame, sweeping towards Nuo Lin. Nuo Lin retreated quickly, but the flame was faster than him, as if it could lock onto his breath and track his figure. He was startled and quickly formed seals with his hands. The golden light condensed into a solid light shield in front of him. Bang! The flames hit the light shield, making a deafening explosion. The light shield kept shaking and cracking under the impact of the flames, as if it would break at any time. Nuo Lin's face was solemn. He knew that he had to find an opportunity to counterattack as soon as possible. Otherwise, once the flames broke through the light shield, the consequences would be disastrous. You monster! Do you think you can defeat me like this? Nuo Lin roared, and he accelerated again. Golden light flowed around him, forming flowing runes. He quickly formed seals with his hands, and golden light gathered in the air to form huge amounts of golden vortexes, sweeping towards the Shalaman snake. Just as the golden vortex was about to completely devour the salamandra with overwhelming force, its thickness regenerated. A hint of cunning flashed in the eyes of the salamandra. At the critical moment, it transformed its body into a raging torrent of flames, going upstream and rushing straight to the core of the golden vortex. Damn, this monster is so cunning. Nuo Lin was secretly shocked. He quickly adjusted his seal, trying to control the golden vortex and suppress the torrent of fire inside it. But the salamandra was obviously not the same as before. The torrent of flames contained an ancient and strange power which constantly eroded the golden vortex, causing it to gradually lose control. "Ha ha! You tiny human, your power is just this much." The voice of the salamandra echoed in the torrent of flames, with endless pride and ridicule. Its figure appeared and disappeared in the flames, as if it had merged with the flames and became the master of the flames. Nualin's face turned pale. He knew that he was in a desperate situation. But at this moment, a familiar figure suddenly appeared in his sight. "Xiang Tianlu." "Nualin, I'm here to help you," Xiang Tianlu shouted. He was surrounded by rich spiritual energy and holding a long sword flashing with cold light in his hand, like a god of war descending from the sky. "Zero request flowers." Xiang Tianlu. Nualin felt warm in her heart, but then she became worried again. He knew that although Xiang Tianlu was strong, he would probably be in great danger facing such a strange and powerful salamandra. However, Xiang Tianlu seemed not to hear his worries. He flashed and rushed into the torrent of flames. The long sword was swung, the sword light was like a dragon, and a fierce battle broke out with the salamandra in the torrent of fire. "You monster! Today is your end," Xiang Tianlu roared. His swordsmanship was sharp and domineering, and each of his swords contained earth-shaking power. The torrent of flames was constantly torn and shattered under his sword, and the figure of the Shero snake gradually appeared. The salamandra roared, feeling the power and threat of Xiang Tianlu. It no longer held back and concentrated all its strength into the flames, launching an even more fierce attack towards Xiang Tianlu. The flames and sword lights intertwined, erupting with a deafening roar. The entire space seemed to be torn apart by this force, and the air became distorted and broken. Zero. Nualin was watching from the sidelines with fear and trepidation, for he knew very well that this battle had gone beyond his imagination. "Xiang Tianlu, be careful," Nualin shouted. He was worried that Xiang Tianlu would be injured in this battle. But Xiang Tianlu seemed not to hear his cry. He was concentrating on dealing with the attack of the salamandra. At this moment, the salamandra suddenly opened its huge mouth and spit out a ball of fire that condensed all its strength. The ball of fire carried a destructive aura, as if it would reduce everything to ashes. Xiang Tianlu's face was solemn. He knew that he had to go all out to withstand this attack. He took a deep breath and concentrated all his strength on the sword. Then he swung his sword violently, and a brilliant sword light burst out from the sword, colliding with the ball of fire. The moment the sword light collided with the ball of fire, the entire space seemed to be ignited, and the dazzling light and the hot air waves intertwined to form a doomsday picture. Under the impact of the sword light, the ball of fire actually made a sizzling sound, as if it was pierced by thousands of swords, gradually becoming thinner and finally turning into nothingness. "Great!" Nualin was so excited watching from the side that he couldn't help but cheer loudly. He knew very well that this attack not only demonstrated Xiang Tianlu's powerful strength, but was also a key step in their victory over the salamandra. However, the salamandra did not give up. Its eyes, like the fire of the underworld, flickered with even crazier, murderous intent. Its body twisted again, and flames surged out like a raging wave, as if it was going to swallow up the entire world. "You monster must be eliminated today," Xiang Tianlu roared. His figure shuttled through the flames like a ghost, waving his sword. The sword light was like a dragon, and he started a more intense confrontation with the salamandra. The flames and sword lights intertwined, and the entire space seemed to be torn into countless pieces. Every collision was accompanied by a deafening roar, as if even the heaven and earth were shaking. The air became distorted and broken, and cracks in space crisscrossed, as if they were going to swallow everything. Xiang Tianlu's figure was as fast as the wind, and his sword was as swift as lightning. He constantly shuttled and slashed in the flames, neutralizing the attacks of the sleeping salamandra. At the same time, he was also looking for the weakness of the salamandra, ready to give it a fatal blow. The salamandra roared. It felt the power and threat from Xiang Tianlu. It no longer held back, and concentrated all its strength into the flames, launching an even more fierce attack towards Xiang Tianlu. The flames surged out like a raging tide, as if they were going to completely submerge the road to heaven. However, Xiang Tianlu seemed not to sense any danger. He accelerated again and rushed towards the salamandra like lightning. With a wave of the long sword, a dazzling sword light appeared, like the dawn, penetrating the barrier of fire and fiercely slashing on the body of the salamandra. Bang! With a loud bang, the body of the salamandra was split in half by the sword. Flames splashed, black smoke filled the air, and the entire space seemed to be torn apart by this force. However, just when everyone thought the battle was over, the body of the salamandra began to wriggle again, as if it was about to be resurrected. Still want to resurrect? Xiang Tianlu snorted coldly, and his figure flashed and came to the body of the salamandra. With a swing of the long sword, a sharper sword light appeared, like a sky slash, completely cutting the salamandra into two pieces. This time, the Sarah snake did not revive. Its body gradually dissipated, turned into a cloud of black smoke, and finally disappeared into the air. The entire space gradually returned to calm. The flames and sword lights disappeared, leaving only a devastated battlefield. After the battle, Xiang Tianlu and Nuo Lin looked at each other and said 443. There was no need for them to say much to each other. The tacit understanding and trust had already been deeply rooted in countless times of fighting side by side. Nuo Lin, we have to find a safe place and treat your injuries first. Xiang Tianlu's voice was a little hoarse, and it was obvious that the fierce battle just now had consumed a lot of his energy. Nuo Lin nodded and looked around. This land that had been ravaged by flames and sword light was now only scorched earth and broken space cracks. It was dead silent for 10 months. Come with me. I remember there is a dense forest not far away. It should be hidden enough there. The two followed the direction in their memory, passed through the twisted space, avoided the remaining embers of the fire, and finally arrived at the edge of the dense forest. The trees are towering into the sky, with dense branches and leaves, blocking most of the sunlight and creating a cool shade. They chose a place sheltered from the wind and leaning against a tree, and began to clean their wounds and take the healing pills they carried with them. It was really dangerous this time. If you hadn't arrived in time, I might have. Nuo Lin's voice was filled with fear and deep gratitude towards Xiang Tianlu. Xiang Tianlu smiled and interrupted Nuo Lin. We are brothers. It's too formal to say these things. Next time, I will save you. The two smiled at each other, and their friendship became stronger between life and death. They rested quietly, allowing the power of nature to help them restore their physical and spiritual strength. Occasionally, the forest could be heard of birds singing and animals roaring, but it seemed particularly peaceful and harmonious, as if even nature was cheering for their victory. Time flies, and in the blink of an eye, several days have passed. The injuries of the two have been basically healed, although the spiritual power in their bodies has not yet fully recovered. It is enough to support them to move forward. To the sky, we have to continue on our journey. Although the salamandra has been eliminated, there are still more challenges waiting for us ahead. Nuo Lin stood up, looking into the distance with a determined gaze. Xiang Tianlu also stood up with Nuo Lin. He looked up at the treetops that towered into the sky. The sunlight shone through the dense branches and leaves, casting mottled light and shadows, adding a bit of mystery and tranquility to this quiet forest. Yes, Nuo Lin, our journey has just begun. But before that, I think we should enjoy this rare peace and quiet. Nuo Lin smiled slightly when he heard this. He understood what Xiang Tianlu meant. During the days of fighting, they had hardly a moment of peace. At this moment, the tranquility and beauty of this forest were undoubtedly the best comfort for them. The two walked slowly along the forest path. There are thick fallen leaves under my feet, which make rustling sounds when I step on them, and interweave with the singing of birds and insects around to form a symphony of nature. The air is filled with the fresh scent of soil and leaves, which makes people feel relaxed and happy. Look, Nuo Lin, there's a stream over there. Xiang Tianlu suddenly stopped and pointed to a clear stream not far ahead. The stream sparkles silver in the sun, like a flowing pearl necklace, adding a bit of agility and vitality to the forest. Nuo Lin walked quickly forward, squatted down, reached out to scoop up a handful of stream water, and took a sip. The clear, sweet water instantly moistened his throat and seemed to cleanse his soul. It's really sweet. Xiang Tianlu, you should try it too. Xiang Tianlu smiled and nodded, then squatted down and enjoyed this gift from nature with Nuo Lin. The two sat quietly by the stream, letting the water gently lap against their feet, enjoying this rare tranquility and harmony. An unknown amount of time had passed, but when the afterglow of the setting sun spread across the earth, the two reluctantly stood up and continued on their journey. They went upstream along the stream, through dense woods and over rugged hills. As night falls, the forest becomes quieter and more mysterious. The moonlight shines through the treetops, casting mottled shadows and covering the forest with a layer of silver gauze. With the help of the faint moonlight, the two of them moved forward cautiously, fearing to disturb the tranquility of the forest. Suddenly, a strange sound came from the front, as if some creature was roaring softly. Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu looked at each other and saw the vigilance and curiosity in each other's eyes. They slowed down and quietly approached the source of the sound. However, when they finally came to the source of the sound, they found that there was no one there, only a dense forest and a winding path. The sound seemed to come from deep underground, and it was like some unknown call that made people feel cold. Xiang Tianlu and Nuo Lin looked at each other. An inexplicable chill rose in their hearts. Although the sound had disappeared, there seemed to be some indescribable fluctuations lingering in the air, making them uneasy. "We can't stay here for long. Let's go," Xiang Tianlu whispered. His voice was particularly clear in the quiet forest, as if even the wind had stopped. Nuo Lin nodded, and the two of them moved, like two black lightning bolts, instantly crossing the forest path and rushing in the opposite direction of the source of the sound. However, at this moment, a sudden strong wind blew up, blowing the surrounding trees all over the place, as if an invisible big hand was controlling everything. "Oh no, something's wrong," Xiang Tianlu shouted. His body paused in the air, and then he turned around and swung his sword, slashing towards the void. I saw a dazzling sword light cutting through the night sky, as if it was going to split the world into two. However, the strong wind seemed to have life. It cleverly avoided Xiang Tianlu's attack and continued to rage. Nuo Lin was shocked when he saw this. He knew very well that this strong wind was not a natural phenomenon, but a manifestation of some mysterious power. He gripped the sword tightly with both hands. The spiritual power in his body surged, ready to meet the upcoming unknown challenges. At this moment, the strong wind suddenly stopped and the surroundings returned to calm again. However, this calmness is even more disturbing, as if something more terrifying is about to happen. "Xiang Tianlu, what do you think is going on?" Nuo Lin asked in a low voice, his voice trembling slightly, and he was obviously shocked by this sudden change. Xiang Tianlu frowned and looked around, trying to find a clue in this silent forest. However, there was nothing around except the dense trees and the winding path. "I don't know, but I can feel that a powerful force is awakening in this forest. We must deal with it carefully, otherwise the consequences will be disastrous," Xiang Tianlu said in a deep voice, with a determined light flashing in his eyes. The two set off again, but this time they were more cautious and always alert to the movements around them. They walked along the path, through dense woods and over rugged hills. However, at this moment, there was a sudden violent tremor in front, as if some huge monster was waking up underground. "Go!" Xiang Tianlu shouted, and his body accelerated instantly, like a black lightning, rushing in the opposite direction of the vibration. Nuo Lin followed closely behind, and the two figures quickly shuttled through the night, like two meteors streaking through the night sky. However, the vibration became stronger and stronger, as if the whole earth was shaking. At this moment, a deafening roar suddenly sounded, and a mountain in front of them collapsed, revealing a huge amount of black hole. The black hole emitted a faint fluorescence, as if it was a portal to an unknown world. This is... Nuo Lin's eyes widened. He had never seen such a strange picture. Xiang Tianlu also had a solemn expression on his face. He stared at the black hole closely, and an inexplicable fear rose in his heart. However, at this moment, a powerful force suddenly surged out from the black hole, instantly sucking the two of them in. When they opened their eyes again, they found themselves in a strange space. This space is filled with strange runes and light, as if it is an ancient formation. And those runes and lights are constantly flashing and changing, as if telling some ancient secrets. Nuo Lin looked around and felt that this space was both strange and mysterious. Every inch of the air seemed to contain ancient power 4.3. He turned to look at Xiang Tianlu, only to see that Xiang Tianlu was also staring at the runes around him with a frown, as if he was trying hard to decipher something. Xiang Tianlu, look at these runes. They seem to be telling a story. Nuo Lin whispered, his voice echoing in the empty space with a barely perceptible tremor. He nodded to Tianlu, his eyes still fixed on the flashing runes. Yes, these runes record an ancient legend about a sealed power and the key to unlock it. Nuo Lin was shocked when he heard this. He had never heard of such a legend, and never thought that he would actually step into such a situation himself. Then what should we do? Should we look for this key and unlock this seal? Xiang Tianlu sighed with a complicated expression. I don't know either, but my intuition tells me that since we were brought here, there must be some reason. Perhaps unlocking this seal is the purpose of our trip. The two were silent for a moment, and then began to look for clues in this space. They walked through walls made of runes, and every step seemed to be stepping on the dust of history. The air is filled with an ancient and mysterious atmosphere, which makes people feel awed. Suddenly, Nuo Lin stopped. His eyes were attracted by a huge amount of runed stone tablet in front of him. The stone tablet was engraved with complicated runes, and on the top of the stone tablet was inlaid a gem that emitted a faint glow. Xiang Tianlu, look at that gem. Is it? Nuo Lin's voice was filled with uncertainty. Upon hearing this, Xiang Tianlu immediately walked over. He looked at the gem carefully, with a hint of surprise in his eyes. Yes, this gem may be the key to unlocking the seal. But how do we use it? The two fell into deep thought again. At this moment, the surrounding runes suddenly began to flash violently, as if a powerful force was being awakened. Then, the entire space began to shake, as if it was about to collapse. No, we have to find a way to use this gem quickly, otherwise we will all be trapped here. Nuo Lin shouted, with an unprecedented firmness in his voice. Nodding to Tianlu, the two began to look for clues more eagerly. However, at this moment, a powerful force suddenly surged out from the 03 steel, instantly enveloping the two of them. When the light faded, they found themselves standing in a completely new space. This space was also covered with runes, but unlike before, the runes here were brighter, as if they contained infinite power. In front of them was a huge amount of stone door, which was engraved with runes similar to those on the stone tablet. And in the center of the stone door, there was a light exactly the same as the gem before. Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu looked at each other, and both could read shock and confusion in their eyes. This sudden change caught them off guard, but it also made them more determined to solve all the mysteries. What kind of power is this? Nuo Lin's voice trembled slightly. He had never felt such a majestic and ancient aura, as if the entire space was telling an ancient myth. Xiang Tianlu took a deep breath, trying to calm the waves in his heart. It seems that we have triggered some mechanism and were teleported here. But no matter what, now that we have come this far, there is no turning back. The two walked slowly toward the huge amounts of stone door, and every step seemed to be stepping on the vein of history, feeling the weight of time. The runes on the stone gate seemed to have life, becoming brighter as they approached, as if welcoming them or warning them. Nualin, look at these runes. They seem to be flowing as if guiding us something. Xiang Tianlu suddenly stopped, staring at the runes on the stone gate with a thoughtful gleam in his eyes. Upon hearing this, Nualin also observed carefully. Sure enough, those runes were not static, but were flowing slowly in an elusive pattern, like a river flowing with the power of the ancients. Could it be this is the clue to open the stone door? Just as the two were immersed in the mystery of the runes, a sudden vibration broke the tranquility. The entire space seemed to be shaken by an invisible force, and the runes on the stone door shone brightly, so bright that it was almost impossible to open one's eyes. Hurry! We must do something, otherwise this space may collapse. Nualin shouted, with unquestionable firmness in his voice. Nodding to Tianlu, they both thought of the gem almost at the same time. They quickly returned to their previous position, only to find that the gem was no longer on the stone tablet, but was suspended in mid-air, emitting a brighter light than before. It seems that this is the key, Xiang Tianlu shouted, and his body suddenly jumped up and rushed straight towards the floating gem. Nualin was not far behind and followed closely behind. The two men fought in the air, not really fighting, but trying to guide the power of the gem in a mysterious way. Their figures shuttled quickly in the air, and every confrontation was accompanied by the flashing of runes and the vibration of space, as if they were conducting a silent contest. As their movements became faster and faster, the vibrations in the space became more and more intense. Suddenly, an indescribable power burst out from their bodies, echoing with the power of the gem, forming a powerful shockwave. Under the impact of this force, the runes on the stone gate began to flow rapidly, and finally gathered into a dazzling light, shooting directly towards the suspended gem. The gem trembled slightly in the air, then turned into a stream of light and shot directly into the center of the stone gate. With a deafening roar, the stone door slowly opened, revealing 10 passages leading to an unknown world. However, just as they were about to step into the passage, the entire space suddenly began to collapse violently, as if to keep them here forever. "Let's go," Nualin shouted, grabbing Xiang Tianlu. The two of them retreated violently and escaped from the collapsing space in a dangerous way. However, when they looked back, they found that the stone door had been closed again and the passage had disappeared without a trace. Nualin and Xiang Tianlu, who escaped from the collapsed space, had just stood firm and had no time to catch their breath when a heart-pounding beast roar suddenly sounded, shaking the air around them, as if even the heaven and earth changed color. They looked up and saw a huge monster standing not far away. Its eyes were like the dark abyss, flashing a cold and cunning light. It was a black-winged demon wolf, several meters long, covered with shiny black hair, which glowed like a metallic luster under the dim light. Its limbs are strong and powerful, and every step it takes seems to be able to crack the earth, and the bristles on its back that stand upright like steel needles show its extraordinariness and ferocity. The most terrifying thing is that its eyes are surrounded by circles of dark purple lines, which are the signs of the violent magic power leaking out of its body. People can feel its unfathomable strength at a glance. This is the black-winged demon wolf. Nualin's face suddenly changed. Although he had never seen it with his own eyes, he had heard a lot of legends about this monster. It is said that the black-winged wolf is a descendant of ancient magical beasts, possessing the powerful ability to control wind and shadow. It is the dream test object of countless explorers and also the nightmare they least want to encounter. Xiang Tianlu also had a solemn expression. He clenched his fists, and the spiritual power in his body surged, preparing for the upcoming battle. It seems that our trial is far from over. Get ready, Nualin. This is going to be a tough battle. The black-winged demon wolf seemed to sense the two people's vigilance. A cruel smile appeared on the corner of its mouth. Its body shook, and it turned into a black shadow and pounced on the two people in an instant. The speed was so fast that it almost exceeded the limit of what the naked eye could capture, bringing up a gust of wind that swept up the dust and gravel on the ground, forming October chaos. "Come on," Nuo Lin shouted, and jumped up like an arrow, heading towards the black shadow. He held the sword tightly in both hands, and the tip of the sword emitted a brilliant light, as if it could illuminate the entire dark space. The sword flashed like a dragon, colliding with the sharp claws of the black wind demon wolf in the air, making a deafening sound of metal collision and sparks flying. Xiang Tianlu chose to go around the side of the black wind wolf. He knew that it was not a wise move to fight head-on. The only way to win was to use speed and flexibility to find flaws. He pushed the spiritual power in his body to the extreme, and his figure was like a ghost, shuttling between the wolf shadows. Every attack was precise and deadly, but was neutralized by the black wind demon wolf with its amazing reaction speed and strong body. "Nuo Lin, be careful of its eyes," Xiang Tianlu suddenly shouted during confrontation. He noticed that whenever the black wind demon wolf launched an attack, its eyes would flash with a strange light, as if it could see into people's minds and predict their actions. Nuo Lin was startled when he heard this and immediately adjusted his tactics. He no longer fought blindly, but instead paid more attention to defense and observation. He used the exquisite body movements in his sword skills to deal with the black wind demon wolf, while looking for an opportunity to kill it with one blow. The battle continued, and the space was filled with the intersection of sword lights and wolf shadows. Every collision was accompanied by roars and sparks, making the surrounding scene seem like a dream. The air was filled with a strong smell of blood and fluctuations of spiritual power, indicating the intensity and cruelty of the battle. "Roar!" The black wind demon wolf suddenly let out a deafening roar. It seemed to be enraged, with all the hair on its body standing on end. Circles of black wind surrounded its body as if to swallow up the entire world. This is its unique skill, the black wind vortex. Xiang Tianlu's face changed drastically. He knew very well the power of this move. Once trapped in it, even they would find it difficult to escape. "Retreat quickly," Xiang Tianlu shouted. His voice sounded particularly sharp in the turbulent storm. He retreated violently, trying to distance himself from the black wind demon wolf. However, the black storm seemed to have life, expanding rapidly and blocking the retreat route completely. Nuo Lin also felt an unprecedented sense of oppression. He did not dare to be negligent. The spiritual power in his body surged wildly. The long sword in his hand seemed to have turned into a messenger of light. Every time he swung it, it tore open a tiny crack in the space, trying to find a glimmer of hope in the storm. "Xiang Tianlu, let's work together," Nuo Lin shouted, with unquestionable firmness in his voice. He knew that facing such a powerful enemy, fighting alone would undoubtedly be a dead end. When Xiang Tianlu heard this, a hint of determination flashed in his eyes. He took a deep breath, and the spiritual energy in his body boiled to the extreme, as if he wanted to burn his soul in order to burst out with even greater force. He quickly formed seals with his hands, and complex runes jumped on his fingertips, eventually converging into a bright beam of light, shooting straight into the center of the black storm. "In my name, the power of the seal is broken," Xiang Tianlu roared, his voice echoing in the storm with an irresistible majesty. The moment the beam of light came into contact with the storm, it burst into dazzling light, as if to completely dispel the darkness. However, the black wind demon wolf is no ordinary creature. It snorted coldly, and an even colder light flashed in its eyes. The black storm seemed to have received some kind of blessing, becoming more violent, and even began to devour the light column and destroy bit by bit. "Damn it," Nuo Lin cursed. Seeing this, he felt a nameless fire rising in his heart. He no longer held back, and the spiritual power in his body rushed madly into the sword like a flood that broke through a dam. The sword seemed to be given life at this moment, and it shone brightly. Mysterious lines began to appear on the sword, emitting an ancient and powerful aura. "Cut!" Nuo Lin shouted, and his long sword was like a dragon emerging from the sea, slashing towards the black storm with the power to destroy the world. The sword light collided with the storm, causing a deafening roar. The entire space was shaking, as if it was about to collapse. The black-winged demon wolf roared miserably in the storm. It felt the threat from Nuo Lin, and a hint of human fear flashed in its eyes. However, as a descendant of ancient magical beasts, it will never surrender easily. It mobilized all its strength, and the black storm expanded again, as if to swallow everything. Nuo Lin, be careful, Xiang Tianlu reminded again. He knew very well how terrible the storm was and was afraid that Nuo Lin would be caught in it. However, Nuo Lin seemed not to have heard it. All he could see was the black storm and the black wind wolf at the center of the storm. Today is your end, Nuo Lin growled. He swung his sword again. This time, the sword light was no longer just one, but countless, like a meteor shower, smashing into the black storm. The sword lights were like rain, impenetrable, and each one carried Nuo Lin's resolute will and unyielding fighting spirit, smashing fiercely into the black storm that seemed to be able to swallow everything. In the storm, the figure of the black-winged wolf loomed, its dark eyes flashing with madness and unwillingness. Obviously, Nuo Lin's attack had completely angered this ancient monster. Roar! The black-winged demon wolf roared again. This time, its voice was mixed with a hint of desperate wailing, as if announcing its final resistance. The storm suddenly intensified, and the black whirlwind surged like a raging wave, swallowing up Nuo Lin's sword light, as if even light could not escape this endless darkness. Nuo Lin, don't fight hard, Xiang Tianlu shouted anxiously. He knew very well that Nuo Lin had fallen into a crazy fighting state at the moment. But if this continued, both of them might die. He once again mobilized the spiritual power in his body and formed seals with his hands. This time, his target was no longer the center of the storm, but the air around Nuo Lin. The space is distorted. Protect my brother, Xiang Tianlu shouted in a low voice. As his words fell, the air around Nuo Lin seemed to be distorted by an invisible force, forming a series of distorted space barriers, which bounced away the black storm that was about to touch Nuo Lin. Nuo Lin felt the help from Xiang Tianlu, and his heart was warmed, but his fighting instinct made him not hesitate for a moment. He swung the sword again. This time, he no longer pursued the quantity of sword light. Instead, he concentrated all his strength on one point. On the tip of the sword, the light was condensed to the extreme, as if it was going to pierce the sky. Break it, Nuo Lin shouted, and his sword cut through the sky like lightning, pointing directly at the black wind wolf in the center of the storm. This time, the sword light was not swallowed by the storm, but like the first ray of sunshine at dawn, it penetrated the endless darkness and hit the vital point. The black wind demon wolf let out a shrill cry. Its figure looked so small under the sword light, as if it would be swallowed up at any time. However, as an ancient demon beast, its vitality is beyond imagination. At the moment when the sword light was about to touch it, it actually mobilized all the magic power in its body to form a black shield to block the sword light outside. Nuo Lin, be careful of its counterattack, Xiang Tianlu reminded again, with a barely perceptible tremor in his voice. He knew very well that the black wind wolf's counterattack would be fatal. Sure enough, just when Nuo Lin was about to launch another attack, the black wind demon wolf suddenly rushed out from the storm, like a black lightning, and pounced on Nuo Lin. There was a crazy light flashing in its eyes, and its claws were like sharp blades, cutting through the sky, bringing with them a heart-pounding chill. Come on, Nuo Lin shouted. Instead of retreating, he advanced with his sword across his chest, ready to face the final decisive battle. He knew that this battle was not only about life and death, but also about dignity and honor. The sword and claw collided in the air, making a deafening roar. The figures of Nuo Lin and the black wind demon wolf crossed in the air, and every confrontation seemed to tear the sky and the earth apart. The air was filled with a strong smell of blood and fluctuations of spiritual power. This battle was beyond the imagination of ordinary people. The clash between sword and claw was like the collision of stars. Every contact stirred up circles of spiritual energy, ripples visible to the naked eye, spreading in all directions and tearing the surrounding space into pieces. New Orleans' figure tumbled in the air, and every swing of the sword was as powerful as a tsunami, while the black-winged demon wolf followed him closely, its claws sharp as a shadow, and every swing was enough to tear metal and stone apart. The air was filled with a thick, murderous atmosphere. You ancient beast, today is your end." New Orleans' voice was particularly clear amid the roar, and his eyes were like an abyss burning with flames, flashing with an unyielding light. He knew very well that this battle was not only a test of physical strength, but also a test of will. The black-winged demon wolf seemed to understand New Orleans' words. It let out an even more shrill roar, and the madness in its eyes became even more intense, as if it wanted to devour New Orleans. Its speed suddenly increased, like a black lightning, leaving afterimages in the air. Each attack was aimed directly at New Orleans' vital points, attempting to win by speed. However, New Orleans remained unmoved. His figure was like a ghost, and he was able to narrowly avoid the black-winged wolf's claws every time. At the same time, his sword was like a dragon emerging from the sea, and every time he swung it, it carried a deafening force, and when it collided with the black-winged wolf's claws, it made a deafening sound. Xiang Tianlu, are you ready? Today, we will let this ancient monster see the power of humans. New Orleans' voice echoed in the roar. His words were full of confidence and determination. When Xiang Tianlu heard this, a hint of determination flashed in his eyes. He knew very well that the battle had reached the most critical moment, and he could no longer sit idly by. He formed seals with his hands again. This time, his goal was no longer to distort the space, but to directly mobilize the spiritual power between heaven and earth, forming huge amounts of spiritual power chains that bound the black-winged demon wolf tightly. "Binding light, hold it for me," Xiang Tianlu shouted. As his words fell, those spiritual chains seemed to come alive, entwining the black-winged demon wolf madly, trying to suppress it completely. The black-winged demon wolf felt the threat from Xiang Tianlu. It let out an even more shrill roar, and the magic power in its body surged wildly, trying to break free from the shackles of those spiritual power chains. However, Xiang Tianlu's spiritual power chains were as strong as a solid wall and did not move at all. "No, Lin, do it," Xiang Tianlu shouted, with a hint of urgency in his voice. He knew this was their only chance. Nu Lin heard this, and a hint of determination flashed in his eyes. He took a deep breath and concentrated all his strength to the extreme. His sword drew a brilliant trajectory in the air, like a bolt of lightning cutting through the sky, heading straight for the throat of the black-winged demon wolf. "Die!" Nu Lin shouted, his voice full of determination and murderous intent. The long sword was like the first ray of sunlight at dawn, piercing through the endless darkness and striking the black-winged demon wolf's vital point. This time, the black-winged demon wolf no longer had the power to resist. There was fear and unwillingness in its eyes, but everything was irreversible. The long sword pierced its throat, and blood gushed out like a fountain, dyeing the surrounding space red. The body of the black-winged demon wolf fell weakly in the air, and finally hit the ground heavily, stirring up a cloud of dust. Its eyes lost their light, and its body stopped moving, and it was obvious that it had completely lost its life. After the huge body of the black-winged demon wolf fell down, the surrounding space seemed to freeze for a moment, and then slowly came back to life. Nu Lin and Xiang Tianlu looked at each other, and they saw the fatigue and relief in each other's eyes. They paid too much for this battle, but the final victory made it all worth it. "We won." Nu Lin's voice trembled slightly. He looked down at the long sword in his hand. The tip of the sword was still dripping with the blood of the black-winged demon wolf. It was the testimony of their victory. He nodded to Tianlu, and a long-lost smile appeared on his face. Yes, we won. However, this ancient monster may still be hiding some secrets. As they spoke, the two walked towards the body of the Black Wind demon wolf. Nuo Lin squatted down and began to search carefully. Soon, he found a crystal that was flickering with a faint light in the belly of the Black Wind demon wolf. The crystal is dark black, with mysterious runes flowing on its surface, as if it contains infinite power. What is this? Nuo Lin picked up the crystal curiously and asked Xiang Tianlu. Xiang Tianlu looked at it carefully, with a hint of surprise in his eyes. This is the heart of the demon wolf. I didn't expect that this Black Wind demon wolf would actually give birth to the heart of the demon wolf. This is one of the most precious treasures in the body of an ancient monster. It is said to contain all the power and wisdom of the monster. The heart of the demon wolf. Nuo Lin was moved when he heard this. He knew very well what such a treasure meant to a warrior. How should we use it? Nuo Lin looked towards Xiang Tianlu, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. Xiang Tianlu pondered for a moment and said, "The demon wolf heart contains great power, but using it directly may cause damage to our bodies. However, if we can find a way to slowly release the power, then our strength will be greatly enhanced." "Then, what should we do?" Nuo Lin asked. Xiang Tianlu thought for a moment and said, "I heard that in ancient times, there was a special formation that could slowly guide the power of treasures in the bodies of monsters out for warriors to absorb. However, this formation has been lost for a long time, and I don't know how to set it up." Nuo Lin frowned slightly when he heard this. But soon, he regained his determination. There will always be a way. Now that we can obtain the demon wolf's heart, we will definitely be able to find a way to use it. Xiang Tianlu nodded and said, "You are right. Let's put the demon wolf heart away first, and then figure out how to use it after we return to the sect." The two of them carefully put away the demon wolf heart and then dealt with the scene. They knew that someone else would soon discover this place, so they had to leave as soon as possible. After returning to the sect, Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu began to study the heart of the demon wolf. They consulted a large number of ancient books and consulted the elders in the sect, and finally found a way to guide the power of the demon wolf heart. After several days of preparation, the two finally began to absorb the heart of the demon wolf. They sat cross-legged, placed the demon wolf heart between them, and then began to guide the power within it according to the methods recorded in ancient books. As the power of the demon wolf heart was slowly released, Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu both felt unprecedented power surging into their bodies. Their cultivation began to improve rapidly, and their strength continued to increase. As the power of the demon wolf heart gradually merged into their bodies, Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu seemed to be in an endless ocean of spiritual power. With every breath, they could feel the fluctuation of spiritual energy in the air around them, as if the whole world was cheering for their growth. Is this the power of the demon wolf heart? Nuo Lin's voice was filled with a hint of disbelief. He could clearly feel the power surging in his body. It was an unprecedented sense of power. Xiang Tianlu smiled slightly, his eyes also flashing with excitement. "Yes, this is the power of the demon wolf heart. We did it, Nuo Lin. Our strength has achieved a qualitative leap." The two smiled at each other, and the tacit understanding and trust between them reached its peak at this moment. They know that all these achievements are inseparable from the support and help of each other. In the following days, Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu gradually began to adapt to this new power. They constantly practiced and sparred with each other, integrating the power of the demon wolf heart into their own martial arts, which further enhanced their strength. However, as their strength grew, they also began to realize that the path to becoming a strong person on this continent was far more complicated than they had imagined. Although the demon wolf heart is powerful, it is only the starting point for them to embark on the road to becoming strong. Finally, one day, when Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu stood on the top of the sect and looked at the endless mountains in the distance, they made a decision. Xiang Tian wrote, "We can't stay here any longer. New Orleans' voice was firm and powerful. His eyes penetrated the layers of clouds, as if he had seen his future self. Xiang Tianlu nodded, his eyes also full of expectations for the future. That's right, all in. We still have a long way to go. The heart of the demon wolf is only the beginning of our journey to becoming a strong man. The real challenge is still waiting for us ahead. The two smiled at each other, then turned around resolutely and embarked on a new journey. Their figures gradually faded away in the afterglow of the setting sun, leaving behind only a series of firm footprints that stood out particularly on the high ground of the sect. They passed through dense forests, crossed turbulent rivers, and climbed over countless towering mountains. Wherever they go, they leave their legends and footprints. The power of the demon wolf's heart is constantly accumulating and sublimating in their bodies, making them even stronger. On this day, when Nu Lin and Xiang Tianlu stood on the top of a mountain that towered into the clouds, they overlooked the world below, their hearts filled with lofty ambitions. Zhang Yinlu, look at this continent. It is so vast and so mysterious. We still have a long way to go. Nu Lin's voice echoed on the top of the mountain, his eyes flashing with infinite longing for the future. As Nu Lin and Xiang Tianlu continued their pace, they crossed endless forests and winding rivers, and finally came to a vast desert. The desert is vast and boundless, with yellow sand all over the sky, as if it is the most primitive and wild masterpiece of nature. Zhang Tianlu, look at this desert. It is so desolate, yet so magnificent. Nu Lin stood on the edge of the desert, gazing deeply into the distance, as if he wanted to take in the endless sea of sand. Xiang Tianlu nodded, and his face also showed admiration. That's right, Lin. Endless secrets and powers are hidden in this desert. Now that we have embarked on the road to becoming strong, we must not be afraid of any challenges. The two smiled at each other, then resolutely stepped into the desert minister. Their figures gradually blurred in the yellow sand, leaving only a series of firm footprints that stood out in the desert. The environment in the desert is extremely harsh, with scorching sun and fierce winds. Nu Lin and Xiang Tianlu moved forward constantly. Their clothes were soaked with sweat, but their eyes became more determined. They know that only by going through countless hardships and tests can they become truly strong. One day, when Nu Lin and Xiang Tianlu walked deep into the desert, they suddenly encountered huge amounts of sand dunes. The sand dunes towered into the sky, like a natural barrier blocking their way. It seems that we have to climb over this sand dune. Nu Lin looked at the sand dune in front of him with a hint of challenge in his tone. Xiang Tianlu smiled slightly, his eyes sparkling with excitement. That's right, Lin. Let us use our strength to prove that nothing can stop us from moving forward. The two smiled at each other, then exerted force at the same time and rushed to the top of the sand dune. Their figures kept rising and falling on the sand dunes, like two flashes of lightning, shuttling through the yellow sand. As they climbed constantly, the wind on the dunes became stronger and stronger. The yellow sand was like a sharp blade, constantly cutting their skin. But Nu Lin and Xiang Tianlu were not afraid. They continued to sprint forward with their strong strength and firm will. Zero request flowers. Finally, after falling and getting up countless times, they successfully climbed over the sand dune. When they stood on the top of the sand dune, the view in front of them suddenly opened up and a whole new world appeared before them. Zhang Yinlu, look, we succeeded. Nu Lin shouted excitedly, his face filled with the joy of victory. Xiang Tianlu also smiled brightly. That's right, Lin. We succeeded, but this is just the beginning. The real challenge is waiting for us ahead. The two smiled at each other, and then set out on their journey again. Their figures gradually faded away in the afterglow of the setting sun, leaving behind only a series of firm footprints that stood out in the desert. However, shortly after they left the sand dunes, a low roar suddenly came from the depths of the desert. The sound was like the roar of an ancient beast, shaking the entire desert. Nu Lin and Xiang Tianlu stopped at the same time. They looked in the direction where the sound came from with serious eyes, their hearts full of vigilance. "What's that sound?" Nuo Lin asked in a low voice, with a hint of uneasiness in his voice. Xiang Tianlu shook his head, his eyes also full of doubts. "I don't know, but it's definitely not a good thing. We have to be careful with this." The two looked at each other, then quickened their pace again. They knew that in this unknown desert, there were countless dangers and challenges hidden. Only by being vigilant and cautious at all times can you survive in this sea of sand. As Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu's steps became more and more rapid, they went deeper into the heart of the desert. The low roar became clearer and clearer, as if some ancient power had awakened in the depths of the desert, calling them in an irresistible manner. "Xiang Tianlu, do you feel that this voice seems to be guiding us?" Nuo Lin's voice sounded a little dull in the wind and sand, but his eyes were unusually bright, full of desire to explore. Xiang Tianlu nodded, frowning. "Indeed, this feeling is like being watched by some unknown existence. But we can't stop. We have to keep going and find out the truth." The two exchanged a firm look and continued to go deeper into the desert. At the moment, the setting sun had completely sunk into the horizon. The night was as dark as ink, the temperature in the desert dropped sharply, and the wind was biting. "Look!" Nuo Lin suddenly stopped and pointed to a group of sand dunes in front of him. "The shape of the sand dunes over there seems to be something wrong." Looking along the road to the sky in the direction of Nuo Lin's finger, I saw that the sand dunes looked extremely strange in the night. There seemed to be some regular arrangement between the sand dunes, like ancient tombstones, quietly telling the secrets of the desert. "Let's get closer and take a look," Xiang Tianlu suggested, with a hint of curiosity in his tone that was hard to conceal. The two approached the sand dunes cautiously. As they got closer, they found that there was a faint light flickering between the dunes. The light was faint and mysterious, as if it was an ancient light shining from the depths of the desert. What is this?" Nuo Lin exclaimed in surprise. He had never seen such a strange sight. Xiang Tianlu was also shocked. He shook his head, indicating that he didn't know either. But at this moment, a more violent sandstorm suddenly swept in and swallowed the two of them in an instant. In the sandstorm, Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu depended on each other tightly, relying on their mutual understanding and strength to resist the invasion of wind and sand with difficulty. Their vision was blocked by the wind and sand, and the only sounds in their ears were the whistling wind and the sound of sand colliding. It seemed as if the whole world was left with only the two of them. "Xiang Tianlu, we have to find a place to shelter from the wind." Nuo Lin shouted loudly, his voice sounding a little weak in the wind and sand. He nodded to Tianlu, tried hard to open his eyes, and tried to find shelter in the wind and sand. However, the sandstorm was so severe that they could not see the road ahead clearly. At this moment, a faint light suddenly appeared in front of them. The light was looming in the wind and sand, as if guiding them in the direction of progress. "Look, there is light over there," Nuo Lin shouted excitedly. He grabbed Xiang Tianlu's hand tightly, and the two rushed towards the direction of the light together. As they moved forward, the light grew brighter, and finally, they found the entrance to a cave hidden beneath the sand dunes. The cave seemed to be a safe haven specially prepared for them by nature, quietly waiting for their arrival. "Hurry, let's go in." Nuo Lin grabbed Xiang Tianlu, and the two rushed into the cave without hesitation. Inside the cave, the wind suddenly stopped, and even the sand and dust could not invade. The two finally got a chance to catch their breath. They leaned against the wall of the cave and smiled at each other. Their eyes showed both relief at surviving the disaster and curiosity and anticipation about the unknown. However, when they began to look at the cave, they found that the walls were engraved with ancient runes. Those runes flickered with faint light, as if telling a forgotten history. Inside the cave, a faint light flickered, and the ancient runes were like a sleeping dragon, slowly waking up in the long river of time, releasing a faint pressure. Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu looked at each other, and both saw shock and awe in each other's eyes. These runes seem to contain some kind of power. Nual Lin murmured in a low voice, his fingers lightly touching the wall of the cave. An inexplicable wave flowed from his fingertips, shocking his heart. Xiang Tianlu nodded solemnly, his eyes like torches scanning the surroundings. Yes, this place is definitely not an ordinary place. We need to proceed with caution so as not to touch upon any unknown taboos. Just as the two were preparing to explore further, the runes on the cave wall suddenly glowed brightly, as if activated by some force, and the entire cave began to tremble. An ancient and powerful aura permeated, making Nual Lin and Xiang Tianlu feel an unprecedented sense of oppression. Oh no, this cave seems to be collapsing. Xiang Tianlu's face suddenly changed, and he quickly pulled Nual Lin back into the depths of the cave. However, the speed at which the cave wall collapsed was far beyond their imagination. Boulders rolled down, dust flew, and the entire cave suddenly became full of dangers. Nual Lin and Xiang Tianlu were agile, dodging left and right in the narrow space. Each dodge was just right, as if they had merged into one with the world. Boom! With a loud noise, a huge amount of rock fell from above. Nual Lin was quick-witted and pushed Xiang Tianlu away, then rolled sideways to narrowly avoid the impact of the rock. Nual Lin, Xiang Tianlu exclaimed, with a hint of worry in his eyes. But then, he quickly adjusted his state and joined the battle to avoid the collapse. The two of them moved as fast as the wind in the cave, and every jump and roll was full of power and beauty. They seemed to have become the masters of this world, waging a silent battle with the collapsed cave. However, the collapse of the cave became more and more severe. The sound of boulders rolling and the scene of flying dust made the space more and more depressing. Although Nual Lin and Xiang Tianlu are powerful, they seem small and powerless in front of the mighty power of nature. Xiang Tianlu, we have to find the exit. Nual Lin shouted loudly, his voice echoing in the collapsed cave, full of determination. He nodded to Tianlu and scanned the surroundings with his sharp eyes. Suddenly, he found a flickering light in a corner of the cave wall, which seemed different from the surrounding ruins. Over there, Xiang Tianlu pointed to that corner and quickly pulled Nual Lin over there. As the two people approached, the light in that corner became brighter and brighter, as if it was a door leading to the outside world. Nual Lin and Xiang Tianlu plunged into the light without any hesitation. As the light flickered, Nual Lin and Xiang Tianlu seemed to have crossed the rift of time and space, and the scene before their eyes suddenly changed. They were in a dim and vast underground palace. Towering stone pillars supported the dome. The stone walls were still carved with intricate runes, flashing with faint blue light, adding a bit of mystery and solemnity to this dead silent space. Is this another world? Nual Lin looked around with disbelief in his tone. Xiang Tianlu frowned slightly and was about to answer when suddenly a heart-pounding breath came from the depths of the palace, as if some huge monster was awakening. Then, a sharp and piercing roar broke the silence, and a huge monster covered with purple and black stripes suddenly appeared in front of them. It was a purple-striped corpse scorpion, more than 10 feet long, with its shell covered with strange purple patterns that flickered with a faint light, like the brightest star in the night sky. A pair of huge amounts of 0.7 pliers are extremely sharp. When they're gently swung, the air is torn apart, making bursts of explosive sounds. At the tail is the iconic stinger, which is crystal clear and contains deadly venom. Purple-striped corpse scorpion. This is a monster that has long been extinct. How could it appear here? Xiang Tianlu's face was solemn, and his tone revealed disbelief. Nual Lin clenched his fists, his eyes were sharp, and he said in a deep voice, "No matter why it appears, we must deal with it carefully. Get ready for battle." The purple-striped corpse scorpion seemed to sense the hostility of the two people and let out an even louder hiss. It stretched out its body and pounced towards Nual Lin like an arrow. Nual Lin moved his body to the side, narrowly avoiding the attack, and at the same time, he threw a backhand punch at the scorpion's side. The fist whistled, causing bursts of air explosions, but only left a shallow mark on the corpse scorpion's hard shell. What a hard shell! New All-In was secretly shocked but not discouraged. He jumped up again and started a fierce close combat with the purple-patterned corpse scorpion. Xiang Tianlu was not in a hurry to join the battle. He closed his eyes slightly, perceiving the subtle changes in the surrounding environment, looking for the weaknesses of the monster. After a moment, he suddenly opened his eyes and appeared at the tail of the corpse scorpion like a ghost. He quickly formed seals with his hands and muttered, "5 elements of heaven and earth, listen to my command and seal it." As Xiang Tianlu finished his words, rays of colorful light shot out from his palm and instantly wrapped around the tail of the purple-patterned corpse scorpion. The light contained the power of the 5 elements, trying to restrict the corpse scorpion's movements. However, the purple-striped corpse scorpion was no ordinary creature. It swung its tail, and its stinger suddenly stabbed towards the colorful light, leaving a crack on the light. It's really tricky." Xiang Tianlu snorted coldly, but instead of retreating, he advanced. He changed the hand seals with his hands again, and the power of the 5 elements condensed again. This time, he directly attacked the corpse scorpion's head. New All-In was also cheered up when he saw this. He moved like a dragon, shuttling between the huge bodies of the corpse scorpion. Every attack was precise and deadly. The wind from fists and shadows of feet intertwined into an impenetrable net, making it difficult for the purple-patterned corpse scorpion to escape. Inside the palace, the battle became more intense. The figures of New All-In 03 and Xiang Tianlu were like 2 flashes of lightning, drawing bright tracks in a dim space. The purple-striped corpse scorpion kept waving huge amounts of its pincers and stingers, trying to break free from the siege of the 2 men. Bang! With a loud bang, New All-In punched the corpse scorpion's shell heavily. This time, he gathered all his strength and finally left a deep crack on the hard shell. Crack! Cracks spread along the shell of the purple-patterned corpse scorpion, as if they were cracks on an ancient stone wall, foreshadowing an impending collapse. New All-In took advantage of the situation, his figure floating like a leaf in the wind, and every attack followed him closely, hitting the vital points directly. "Xiang Tianlu, give me a hand!" New All-In shouted, and his fists fell on the corpse scorpion's shell like 2 heavy hammers. Every impact caused circles of ripples visible to the naked eye, shaking the entire palace slightly. Upon hearing this, Xiang Tianlu's eyes flashed, and he quickly formed seals with his hands, muttering, "The 5 elements are interdependent, endless turn." As his words fell, the colorful light that was originally pierced by the corpse scorpion's stinger suddenly flowed and turned into rotating 5-element halos that tightly bound the corpse scorpion. The purple-striped corpse scorpion let out an angry hiss and waved its pincers wildly in huge amounts, trying to break free from the constraints of the 5-element halo. However, the halos seemed to have infinite power, and no matter how the corpse scorpion struggled, it could not be shaken in the slightest. Hold it for me." Xiang Tianlu snorted coldly and suddenly clasped his hands together. The 5 elements halo shrank instantly, compressing the corpse scorpion tightly into a small space. At this moment, the purple-patterned corpse scorpion suddenly burst out with unprecedented power. Its shell shone with purple light, as if an endless flame was burning, dimming the 5 halos. "Oh no, it's burning its vitality." New All-In's face changed drastically. He knew very well that once a monster of this level burned its vitality, the power it would unleash would be unimaginable. Sure enough, with a roar from the purple corpse scorpion, it unexpectedly broke free from the restraints of the 5 elements halo, and its huge amounts of pincers were like 2 sharp scissors, going straight for New All-In's throat. New All-In turned his body to the side and narrowly avoided the corpse scorpion's attack, but the powerful force still made his blood boil. He knew very well that at the moment there was no room for hesitation and he had to go all out. "Let's go to Tianlu together." Lin shouted, and suddenly jumped up again, starting the final battle with the purple-patterned corpse scorpion. Inside the palace, the battle reached a fever pitch. Lin and Xiang Tianlu were like two gusts of wind, shuttling between the huge body of the corpse scorpion, and they put all their strength into every attack. The purple-striped corpse scorpion showed no sign of weakness. It seemed to have forgotten the pain and fear, and was left with only endless killing and madness. Lin suddenly jumped up, like a wild horse running away from its reins, galloping through the dim space of the palace. Every step he took made a heavy echo, as if he was going to crush the ancient stone slabs. There was a determined light in his eyes, which was a desire for victory and a fearlessness in the face of unknown challenges. Purple-striped corpse scorpion, today is your end. Lin shouted angrily, and his fists were like two lightning bolts, cutting through the air and hitting the corpse scorpion's vital points. The fist wind whistled, causing bursts of air explosions, as if it was going to overturn the dome of the palace. The purple-striped corpse scorpion let out a deafening roar, and its huge amounts of pincers were like two death god sickles, wielding them with terrifying power that could tear everything apart. Its shell was flickering with purple light, as if there was an endless flame burning, making the surrounding air extremely hot. Lin, be careful, Xiang Tianlu reminded loudly. He quickly formed seals with his hands, and colorful rays of light shot out from his palms, transforming into rotating five-element halos in an attempt to bind the corpse scorpion again. However, the purple-striped corpse scorpion seemed to see through Xiang Tianlu's intention. It turned its body to the side, cleverly avoiding the restraint of the five-elements halo. At the same time, it swung its tail stinger suddenly, and the crystal-clear venom shot towards Xiang Tianlu like a poisonous snake. Xiang Tianlu's face changed slightly, and he dodged like a ghost, but the speed of the venom was so fast that it almost brushed the corner of his clothes. He knew very well how powerful the venom was. If he was infected, the consequences would be disastrous. Xiang Tianlu, you step back, Lin shouted. He knew very well that at the moment it was a matter of life and death, and there was no room for hesitation. He leapt up again, like a tiger rushing down a mountain, and headed straight for the purple-striped scorpion. Boom! Lin punched the corpse scorpion's shell heavily. The collision between the fist wind and the shell made a deafening sound, as if it was going to collapse the entire palace. However, the shell was as hard as steel, and Lin's fist only left a shallow mark. Damn it! Lin cursed in his heart, but he was not discouraged. Instead, it aroused his fighting spirit even more. He shuttled through the huge body of the corpse scorpion like a dragon, and he put all his strength into every attack. The purple-striped corpse scorpion was not to be outdone, wielding huge amounts of its pincers, and each attack carried a terrifying force that could tear everything apart. Although Lin was agile, it was difficult for him to completely avoid the attack of the corpse scorpion in this small space. Bang! Lin was hit by the corpse scorpion's pincers, and the whole person flew backwards like a kite with a broken string and hit the stone wall of the palace heavily. He felt his blood boiling, and his chest seemed to be pressed down by a huge rock, making it difficult to breathe. However, Lin did not give up. He endured the pain and struggled to get up from the ground, with a more determined light in his eyes. Lin stood up shakily. His chest felt as if it was being crushed by a huge rock, and every breath was accompanied by severe pain. But there was no sign of retreat in his eyes, only an increasingly fierce fighting spirit. He knew very well that he was standing on the brink of life and death at this moment, and only by going all out could he have a chance of survival. Purple-veined corpse scorpion, you may be powerful, but how can I, Lin, admit defeat so easily? Lin's voice echoed in the palace with unyielding tenacity. He rushed towards the corpse scorpion again, like a wounded beast, fighting to the death even though he was covered in wounds. The purple-striped corpse scorpion seemed to have sensed Lin's determination, and it let out an even more violent roar. Its pincers were like two lightning bolts, carrying a terrifying force that could tear the air apart, and went straight for Nuo Lin's vital points. Nuo Lin was very agile, moving between the pincers like a fish. Every time she dodged, she was well-timed, but also fraught with danger. The air in the palace seemed to freeze, with only the battle between Nuo Lin and the purple-striped corpse scorpion going on fiercely. Every collision was accompanied by a deafening noise, as if it would completely destroy the ancient stone palace. "Xiang Tianlu, help me hold it back for a moment," Nuo Lin shouted loudly. He knew very well that he could not deal with this powerful monster alone. Upon hearing this, Xiang Tianlu took action immediately. He quickly formed seals with his hands, and rays of colorful light shot out again, transforming into a five-element halo, trying to restrain the corpse scorpion's movements. The purple-striped corpse scorpion roared continuously. It was unwilling to be restrained, and it swung its stinger on its tail suddenly. Crystal-clear venom sprayed around like a fountain. Xiang Tianlu retreated rapidly, but even so, a few drops of venom splashed onto his sleeves, instantly corroding several small holes and emitting a pungent stench. "Be careful of its venom," Xiang Tianlu reminded. His face was a little pale. It was obvious that the power of this venom should not be underestimated. Nuo Lin seemed not to hear it. He stared at the purple-veined corpse scorpion, looking for an opportunity to deliver a fatal blow. Finally, during a fierce confrontation, he discovered an imperceptible crack on the corpse scorpion's shell. "Now!" Nuo Lin shouted, gathering all his strength, and his fists slammed into the crack like two bright meteors. Boom! The collision between the fist wind and the shell made a deafening sound. This time, the crack expanded rapidly, like a flash of lightning across the night sky. The purple-striped corpse scorpion let out a shrill roar, and its shell finally couldn't withstand Nuo Lin's full-strength attack and began to crack. Nuo Lin took advantage of the opportunity, and his fists rained down on the corpse scorpion's vital points. Each attack carried a terrifying force that was enough to destroy everything. The struggle of the purple-striped corpse scorpion became weaker and weaker, and finally, its huge body fell to the ground with a loud bang, without any sound. Nuo Lin stood there, breathing heavily. His clothes were soaked with sweat, but a victorious smile appeared on his face. "We won." Xiang Tianlu walked up and patted Nuo Lin on the shoulder, with a hint of admiration in his tone. Nuo Lin took a deep breath, his chest heaving, but the light in his eyes became more determined. He looked at the fallen, purple-striped corpse scorpion. The once terrifying behemoth had now completely lost its vitality. An indescribable sense of accomplishment surged in his heart. "Yes, we won." Nuo Lin's voice trembled slightly. It was an emotion intertwined with exhaustion after the battle and the joy of victory. He turned to look at Xiang Tianlu, and their eyes met in the air. Without saying anything, they both understood the respect and gratitude in each other's hearts. "Thank you, Xiang Tianlu. If you hadn't restrained it in time, I would have been defeated by its sting," Nuo Lin said sincerely, his tone full of gratitude. Xiang Tianlu smiled slightly, shook his head, and said, "You're welcome. We are teammates, and it's only natural for us to help each other. Moreover, your tenacity and courage have deeply touched me. I believe that no matter what difficulties we encounter, as long as we work together, there is nothing we cannot overcome." The two smiled at each other, and then began to look for a safe place in the palace to rest. After some searching, they found a hidden stone chamber. The interior was dry and clean, and the air was filled with a faint fragrance, as if it was completely isolated from the noise and fighting of the outside world. They lit a bonfire, and the warm light dispelled the chill in the stone chamber and gave their tired bodies a moment of relaxation. Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu sat beside the campfire, quietly recovering from their injuries. The sound of the wind outside the stone chamber was intertwined with the roar of beasts in the distance. But inside the stone chamber, everything seemed to have become quiet and peaceful. Time passed quietly, and in the blink of an eye, A few days had passed. During these few days, Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu's injuries gradually improved, and their physical strength was restored. They supported each other and got through this difficult time together. Whenever night falls, they sit around the campfire, sharing each other's stories and experiences and discussing future plans and directions. Finally, when the first ray of sunlight penetrated the crack in the top of the stone chamber and shone on them, Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu knew it was time to continue their journey. Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu walked out of the stone chamber side by side, facing the rising sun, their hearts full of anticipation for a new journey. They walked along the ruins of the palace, step by step, towards the outside world. The scenery along the way gradually changed from desolate to vibrant. The trees are lush, the birds are singing, and the flowers are fragrant, as if nature is cheering for their victory. After several days of trekking, they arrived at a prosperous place called Qingshui City. Qingshui City is located by the mountains and the water. The city walls are tall and solid, and the city gates are carved with intricate totems, making it look simple and solemn. The streets in the city are spacious and clean, with shops lining both sides, and the city is bustling with people. Nuo Lin and Xiangtian Road walked on the streets, feeling the unique charm of this city. Their attention was first attracted by a tea house. In front of the door hung an antique plaque with 4 large characters, Qingfeng Tea House, inscribed on it. The two walked into the tea house and sat down by the window. The tea house was filled with the aroma of tea. They ordered a pot of Longjing tea, a local specialty, and sipped the tea while admiring the street view outside the window. The tea is clear and green, sweet and refreshing. Xiangdianlu, where do you think we should go next? Nuo Lin put down the teacup and replied. Xiang Tianlu thought for a moment and said, I think we should first understand the situation on this continent before deciding on the next course of action. As Qingshui City is a big city, there should be a lot of information circulating. We, Qian Wang Zhao, can go to the market and maybe we can get something. Nuo Lin nodded in agreement. After they finished their tea, they set off for the market. The market was bustling with people, and there were all kinds of stalls selling medicinal herbs, weapons, jewelry, everything you could think of. They stopped in front of a stall selling medicinal herbs. The stall owner is an old man with white hair and beard. He greets customers warmly and introduces the effects of various medicinal herbs. Nuo Lin was quite interested in medicinal herbs, so he started chatting with the old man. Old man, where do you pick the herbs here? Nuo Lin asked. The old man smiled and replied, I picked these from the nearby mountains and forests. They are all top-quality medicinal herbs. Young man, if you need it, I can give you a discount. Nuo Lin smiled and shook his head, saying, I'm just asking casually, but my friend is also very interested in medicinal herbs. Maybe he will buy some. As he said this, he looked towards Xiang Tianlu. Xiang Tianlu was indeed selecting medicinal herbs carefully. He picked up a herb and looked at it carefully. What is the name of this herb? Xiang Tianlu asked. This is the spirit snake grass, which has the effect of detoxification, the old man explained. Xiang Tianlu nodded, put down the spirit snake grass, and continued to pick other medicinal herbs. At this moment, Nuo Lin's attention was attracted by a stall selling antiques. The stalls were filled with various antique porcelain, jade, calligraphy, and paintings, which looked quite tempting. Shantian Road, look over there, Nuo Lin said, pointing at the antique stall. Upon hearing this, Xiang Tianlu put down the herbs in his hand and walked over. He carefully examined the antiques on the stall, picking up one from time to time to examine it carefully. This porcelain looks good. Xiang Tianlu picked up a blue and white porcelain vase and said. The stall owner was a middle-aged man. He looked at Xiang Tianlu with a smile and said, This young man really knows what he is talking about. This blue and white porcelain vase is a product of the official kiln of the Qing dynasty and is priceless. Xiang Tianlu smiled slightly and said, Oh, then how many gold coins does this porcelain cost? The stall owner held up 5 fingers and said, 5,000 gold coins, not a cent less. Xiang Tianlu frowned and said, 5,000 gold coins? That's 770 coins. Just then, Nuo Lin found a seemingly inconspicuous jade pendant in a corner of the stall. The jade pendant is oval in shape, emerald green all over, and has intricate totems carved on it. Although there are some stains on the surface of the jade pendant, one can still vaguely feel the faint spiritual energy it exudes. Xiang Tianlu, what do you think of this jade pendant? Nuo Lin picked up the jade pendant and asked. Xiang Tianlu took the jade pendant and looked at it carefully. He gently stroked the surface of the jade pendant, feeling its warm touch. After a moment, a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. This jade pendant is not simple, Xiang Tianlu said in a low voice. Upon hearing this, the stall owner glanced at the jade pendant and said, "Oh, this young man also knows the value of the jade pendant? I bought this jade pendant from a ruined noble mansion, and no one knew its value. Since you know the goods, I'll sell it to you at a low price. How about 1,000 gold coins?" Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu looked at each other, and both knew in their hearts that the value of this jade pendant far exceeded 1,000 gold coins. They pretended to hesitate, then nodded. "Okay, 1,000 gold coins is 1,000 gold coins," Nuo Lin said. Seeing this, the stall owner showed a satisfied smile on his face. He, Advk, took the gold coin and handed the pendant to Nuo Lin. "Young man, you really know what's good. I'll come to you again if I find something good next time," said the stall owner. Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu held the jade pendant, secretly feeling lucky that they had picked up such a great bargain. They continued to stroll around the market, bought some necessities, and then found an inn to stay in. As night falls, the streets of Qingshui City gradually become quiet. Only the occasional cries of night market vendors and laughter from distant restaurants add a bit of warmth and vitality to this ancient city. Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu sat by the window on the second floor of the inn, and the table was filled with all kinds of snacks and special drinks that they had just bought from the night market. "Xiang Tianlu, do you think there's something fishy about the jade pendant you bought today?" Nuo Lin turned to look at Xiang Tianlu, who was studying the jade pendant while tasting a piece of sweet osmanthus cake. Xiang Tianlu raised his head, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Indeed, I have studied it carefully, and the totem on this jade pendant is not an ordinary decoration, but a powerful sealing technique from ancient times. Moreover, I can sense a faint fluctuation of spiritual power hidden inside it, which means it is likely a forgotten magic weapon." Nuo Lin's eyes lit up when he heard this. "Magic weapon? Then don't we have found a treasure?" Xiang Tianlu smiled slightly, but then frowned again. "However, the seal of this jade pendant seems to be extremely complicated. With our current strength, it may be difficult to unlock it. Moreover, once the seal is broken, who knows what kind of power will be released, whether it is good or bad." The two of them fell into deep thought. After a moment, Nuo Lin patted Xiang Tianlu on the shoulder and said with a smile, "No matter what, this is an opportunity for us. Now that we have it, it means that we will be able to unlock its seal one day. Now, let's just enjoy the food in front of us. After all, we haven't been so relaxed for a long time." Xiang Tianlu nodded in agreement, and the two continued to taste the food on the table, occasionally exchanging a few guesses about the jade pendant, and the atmosphere was relaxed and pleasant. As the night deepened, the occasional footsteps outside the inn became sparse. After having a good meal and a few drinks, Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu decided to take a walk in the backyard of the inn to enjoy this rare quiet time. The backyard is full of various flowers. Under the moonlight, the flowers seem more beautiful and emit a faint fragrance. The two of them strolled among the flowers, occasionally stopping to admire a particularly eye-catching flower or listen to the chirping of insects in the distance, enjoying this rare tranquility and harmony. Occasionally, a few fireflies dance among the flowers in the backyard, like stars, adding a bit of mystery and romance to the night. Nuo Lin and Shangtian Road walked slowly along the cobblestone path, and every step seemed to be stepping on the gentle waves of time. "Xiang Tianlu, have you ever thought about what kind of power is hidden inside if we really unlock the seal of this jade pendant?" Nuo Lin asked softly. His voice was particularly clear in the quiet night, as if every word carried infinite reverie about the future. Xiang Tianlu stopped and looked through the layers of petals at the bright moon, his eyes flickering with thought. I have thought of many possibilities. Maybe it is a powerful attack spell that makes us invincible in battle. Or it may be a defensive secret that protects us from any harm. Or even, it may hide the secret to another world and lead us to explore unknown areas. After hearing this, Nuo Lin showed a longing look on his face. No matter which one it is enough to make our life more wonderful. However, I hope it can help us find our way home. After all, we have been away from home for too long. Xiang Tianlu gently patted Nuo Lin's shoulder with a hint of comfort in his tone. Yes, Nuo Lin. No matter what the future holds, as long as we don't give up hope, we will find our way home one day. Besides, aren't the experiences along the way our most valuable treasure? The two continued walking forward and came to a corner of the backyard, where there was a small pond. The water in the pond was crystal clear and reflected the stars in the sky, like a tranquil painting. By the pond, a few frogs were croaking from time to time, adding a bit of liveliness to this quiet night. Look, there's a frog singing over there. Nuo Lin pointed to a frog by the pond and said with a smile. Xiang Tianlu also smiled. Yes, their lives are simple, but full of fun. Sometimes, I really envy them for being able to live carefree on this land. The two sat on the stone bench beside the pond, quietly listening to the natural sounds around them and feeling this rare peace and harmony. The night breeze blows gently, bringing bursts of floral fragrance, making people feel relaxed and happy. The night gradually deepened. In the silence, only the frogs in the pond were still singing their nocturne tirelessly. The sounds rose and fell like the most melodious music in nature. Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu sat quietly, as if blending into the tranquility and becoming a part of the night. Xiang Tianlu, have you ever thought about what it would be like if we could really unlock the secret of the jade pendant one day? Nuo Lin's voice drifted gently in the night wind, with a hint of imperceptible expectation. Xiang Tianlu tilted his head slightly. His eyes passed through the pond, as if he had penetrated the boundaries of time and space and saw the unreachable future. I imagine that at that moment, we might be standing in front of a brand new world, surrounded by brilliant magical light, and the air was filled with an ancient and mysterious atmosphere. The power of the jade pendant will lead us into a brand new journey, where there are wonders we have never seen before and puzzles waiting for us to solve. Nuo Lin heard this. His eyes sparkled with excitement. That's really exciting. However, I'm also a little worried. What if the seal we unlock brings us a power that we can't control? Xiang Tianlu gently patted the back of Nuo Lin's hand to comfort her. Nuo Lin, no matter what the future holds, we will face it together. Remember, we have each other, and that is our greatest strength. Moreover, I believe that no matter what secrets are hidden in the jade pendant, since it chose us, there must be a reason for it. The two smiled at each other, as if at this moment, all their worries disappeared. The night wind continued to blow, bringing cool breezes and taking away the restlessness and anxiety in their hearts. Then they slowly stood up and returned to the inn along the path they came from. In the night, the lights of the inn appear particularly warm, like a harbor of home, waiting for the returning travelers. On the second morning, when the first ray of sunlight penetrated the clouds and shone on the earth, Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu were already ready to go. They embarked on a new journey with curiosity and yearning for the unknown. Along the way, they passed through lush green forests and crossed gurgling streams, and every step was filled with the joy of exploration. The birds in the forest sang happily on the branches, as if cheering for their journey. The flowers by the stream bloomed in the sun, emitting bursts of fragrance, as if welcoming their arrival. As they walked further and further, the scenery ahead became more and more magnificent. In the distance, endless mountains are looming in the clouds, like a magnificent landscape painting. Nearby, golden wheat fields sway in the wind, as if telling the joy of the harvest. Look, Shantian Road, that mountain range looks so mysterious. Nu Lin pointed to the mountains in the distance, his eyes full of longing. Following Nu Lin's guidance, Xiang Tianlu's gaze also focused on the distant and mysterious mountains, where clouds and mist were lingering, as if an ancient power was wandering between sleep and wakefulness. An indescribable impulse surged in his heart, a desire for the unknown and a pursuit of power. It is indeed mysterious, but the more so, the more worthy it is for us to explore. Xiang Tianlu's voice was steady and powerful, revealing his unquestionable determination. There was determination and courage in his eyes, as if no difficulties or obstacles could stop him from moving forward. The two quickened their pace and headed deeper into the mountains along the winding path. The scenery along the way became increasingly rugged, with a faint mist filling the mountains and forests, as if the whole world was shrouded in a hazy haze. Suddenly, a strong wind blew up, swaying the surrounding trees, as if an invisible force was stirring up the world. Nu Lin and Xiang Tianlu looked at each other and saw vigilance and solemnity in each other's eyes. It seems that this mountain range is not simple, Xiang Tianlu said in a deep voice, his hands secretly exerting their strength, ready to deal with any possible crisis at any time. However, the crisis did not come as they expected. On the contrary, as they went deeper into the mountains, the surrounding scenery became more peaceful and tranquil. The fog in the mountains and forests gradually dissipated, revealing green leaves and colorful flowers. It's really strange. I clearly feel a powerful force surging here, but why is it so quiet now? Nu Lin frowned, his heart full of doubts. Xiang Tianlu did not answer immediately, but quietly perceived everything around him. After a moment, he slowly spoke. Perhaps this force is not malicious. It's just waiting for us to unveil its veil. The two continued to move forward and finally arrived at the core area of the mountains. This is a vast open space with huge amounts of stone tablets standing in the center. The stone tablets are engraved with ancient runes and emit a faint fluorescence. 0. Request flowers. 0. Look, this is the place we are looking for. Nu Lin pointed at the stone tablet, his eyes flashing with excitement. Xiang Tianlu walked forward and carefully observed the runes on the stone tablet. His fingers gently touched the runes, as if he was having some kind of mysterious communication with them. Suddenly, his expression changed, and he took several steps back. What's wrong? Nu Lin saw this and hurried forward to ask. Xiang Tianlu's face was solemn, and his eyes were fixed on the stone tablet. These runes, they are vibrating. Before he finished speaking, the runes on the stone tablet suddenly shone brightly, illuminating the entire open space as bright as day. Immediately afterwards, a powerful energy surged out from the stone tablet and spread in all directions. Nu Lin and Xiang Tianlu both felt the power of this energy, and they quickly used their strength to resist it. 0. However, this energy seemed endless and gradually suppressed their strength. Nu Lin clenched his teeth, clenched his hands into fists, and the muscles of his whole body were tense under the pressure of energy, as if he would burst out with amazing power at any time. He stared at the stone tablet with a firm gaze, and an unyielding will surged in his heart. Xiang Tianlu, we can't be suppressed like this. Nu Lin's voice echoed in the empty space with unquestionable firmness. When Xiang Tianlu heard this, a hint of admiration flashed in his eyes. He knew Nu Lin's tenacity and perseverance, which was their support along the way. He took a deep breath, and it seemed as if some kind of power was awakening in his body, forming a subtle confrontation with the energy released by the stone. Nu Lin, you're right. We cannot be bound by this force. We must find its source and control it. Xiang Tianlu's voice was steady and powerful, and his words were like an invisible force, inspiring Nu Lin. The two looked at each other, and without saying anything, they understood each other's thoughts. They took a step forward at the same time, and their figures rushed towards the stone tablet like two lightning bolts. The moment they approached the stone tablet, they swung their fists at the same time. The wind from their fists whistled, carrying a devastating momentum, and collided with the energy on the stone tablet. Boom! There was a loud bang, and the entire open space seemed to tremble. The runes on the stone tablet glowed brighter under the attack of the two, as if some ancient power was awakening, interweaving with their power to form a magnificent picture. However, just when they thought they were about to control this power, the stone tablet suddenly erupted with even stronger energy fluctuations. This energy was like a violent torrent, instantly blowing them both away and dropping them heavily to the ground. Nuo Lin struggled to get up, with a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, but the determination in his eyes remained unchanged. He looked at Xiang Tianlu and saw that Xiang Tianlu also stood up in a similarly embarrassed manner, but with excitement gleaming in his eyes. Nuo Lin, we succeeded. We touched this power. There was a slight tremor in Xiang Tianlu's voice, a mixture of excitement and joy. Hearing this, Nuo Lin felt an indescribable excitement in his heart. They finally found the source of this power, and although they can't control it now, this is already a huge amount of breakthrough. The two walked to the stone tablet again and carefully observed the runes. These runes seemed to contain some ancient wisdom, waiting for them to explore and comprehend. Suddenly, the runes on the stone tablet began to flow slowly, as if they had life. They interweave into mysterious patterns in the air, each pattern emitting a different light, as if telling some ancient legend. Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu were both attracted by this strange sight. They observed the patterns intently, trying to find a way to control this power. 283. Just as Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu were immersed in the mystery of the rune pattern, a low and majestic roar suddenly sounded in the open space, breaking the original tranquility. The voice contained endless pressure, which made the two people's hearts tighten, as if some huge monster was approaching. They turned around quickly and saw a huge monster walking out of the forest in the distance. This monster was several feet long and covered with black hair, which shone dimly under the moonlight. Its eyes were like two dazzling purple gems, flashing a heart-pounding light, as if they could see into people's hearts. What is even more shocking is that it has a pair of huge amounts of cloud wings growing on its back. When they flap gently, they bring about gusts of wind that make the surrounding trees tremble. Purple-eyed, cloud-winged tiger, Xiang Tianlu exclaimed in a low voice, his face becoming solemn. He was well aware of the power of these monsters. Their strength was enough to rival that of top warriors, and they were even better in some aspects. Nuo Lin also stared at the monster in front of him. His hands were already secretly gathering strength, ready to deal with any crisis that might arise. He knew very well that the appearance of this purple-eyed, cloud-winged tiger was no accident, and it was most likely attracted by the power on the stone tablet. The purple-eyed, cloud-winged tiger slowly approached, its eyes fixed on Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu, as if it was looking at two insignificant ants. The corners of its mouth rose slightly, revealing its sharp fangs, as if mocking their powerlessness. Oomph! A mere two humans dare to attempt to control this power? The voice of the purple-eyed, cloud-winged tiger echoed in the open space, carrying with it endless ridicule and disdain. Nuo Lin heard this, and Fei Ji's eyes flashed. He knew very well that it was futile to reason with such a monster, and only strength could make it retreat. Xiang Tianlu, let's join forces. Nuo Lin shouted in a low voice, and his figure suddenly jumped up and rushed towards the purple-eyed, cloud-winged tiger like an arrow. Xiang Tianlu followed closely behind, and the momentum of the two instantly reached its peak. When the purple-eyed, cloud-winged tiger saw this, a trace of contempt flashed in his eyes. It flapped its wings slightly, and its body instantly turned into a black shadow, heading towards Nuo Lin. Its speed was so fast that it seemed to transcend the constraints of space, causing Nuo Lin to feel a palpitation. However, Nuo Lin did not back down. He clenched his fists, and it seemed as if some kind of power was boiling in his body, forming a subtle resonance with the energy on the stone tablet. His fist whistled out with a devastating force as it collided with the sharp claws of the purple-eyed, cloud-winged tiger. Boom! There was a loud bang, and the entire open space seemed to tremble. The collision between the fist wind and the sharp claws produced a strong energy fluctuation, which destroyed the surrounding trees and caused them to break branches and fall flowers. Xiang Tianlu also took the opportunity to launch an attack. His figure shuttled through the void like a ghost. His hands quickly formed seals, and dazzling runes flew out from his fingertips and blasted towards the purple-eyed, cloud-winged tiger. These runes contained powerful forces that seemed to be able to tear apart space, causing the purple-eyed, six-winged tiger to feel a palpitation in his heart. The purple-eyed, cloud-winged tiger roared, and its eyes suddenly burst into dazzling purple light. The light was like two sharp swords, instantly piercing through Xiang Tianlu's rune attack and forcing him to retreat again and again. Nuo Lin felt a sense of crisis when he saw this. He knew very well that the strength of this purple-eyed, cloud-winged tiger was far beyond their imagination, and they had to go all out to have a chance of winning. He swung his fist out again, and the circle of wind blasted towards the purple-eyed Yunjiahu like a violent storm. At the same time, he also secretly gathered his strength, preparing to display his strongest martial arts. The purple-eyed, cloud-winged tiger was not to be outdone. It nimbly shuttled through the void, avoiding Nuo Lin's attacks. At the same time, its sharp claws grabbed towards Nuo Lin like lightning, and every attack contained a deadly threat. The three of them fought fiercely in the open space. The sounds of whistling fists, shining runes, and sharp claws tearing the air intertwined together, forming a thrilling picture. Every attack was terrifying, as if the whole world was shaking at this moment. In this open space, illuminated by ancient runes, the fierce battle between Nuo Lin, Xiang Tianlu, and the purple-eyed cloud-winged tiger was like a collision of stars, shocking everyone. Nuo Lin was agile, and every punch he swung carried the momentum of shattering mountains and rivers. But the purple-eyed, cloud-winged tiger was always able to dodge easily with its speed beyond the mortal world. Its sharp claws were like meteors in the night sky, cutting through the void and pointing directly at Nuo Lin's vital points. With every clash, there seemed to be thunder in the air, shaking this ancient land. Humans, your strength is just a drop in the ocean in this vast universe. The voice of the purple-eyed, cloud-winged tiger echoed with a hint of teasing, as if it was already the master of this universe. Xiang Tianlu was anxious when he saw this. He knew very well that it would be difficult for Nuo Lin alone to fight against the monster. Then, he suddenly jumped up like the brightest star in the night sky, and he formed seals with his hands. Runes flickered and turned into dazzling streams of light, sweeping towards the purple-eyed, cloud-winged tiger. However, when these runes came into contact with the faint purple light surrounding the purple-eyed, cloud-winged tiger, they instantly dissipated like ice and snow melting. You dare to show off your trivial skills in front of me? The purple-eyed, cloud-winged tiger sneered, and the purple light in his eyes became more dazzling, as if he could see through all the vanity in the world. Nuo Lin was shocked when he saw this. He knew that he had to find the weakness of this monster, otherwise they might not be able to escape unscathed today. He took a deep breath, and it seemed as if some ancient power was awakening in his body, creating a strange resonance with the runes on the stone tablet. Xiang Tianlu, let's attack together and see if we can break its defense, Nuo Lin said in a low voice, his voice full of firmness and determination. Nodding to Tianlu, the two of them instantly merged into one, like two stars converging, releasing unprecedented light. Their power reached its peak at this moment, as if even the heaven and earth were trembling. The purple-eyed, cloud-winged tiger felt this unprecedented threat, and a trace of solemnity flashed in its eyes. It no longer looked down on the two humans, but instead went all out, preparing for the fatal blow. Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu suddenly jumped up and rushed towards the purple-eyed winged tiger like two lightning bolts. Their strength was concentrated to the extreme at this moment, as if they were going to tear the open space apart. The purple-eyed cloud-winged tiger was not to be outdone. It spread its wings like a blooming purple lotus, emitting dazzling light and colliding with the attacks of the two men. Boom! There was a loud bang, and the entire open space seemed to collapse. The strong energy fluctuations swept around like a tsunami, destroying the surrounding trees, breaking their branches and dropping their flowers, and raising dust. However, when the energy fluctuation dissipated, the purple-eyed cloud-winged tiger was still standing, but there was a hint of fatigue and surprise in its purple eyes. Nuo-Lin and Xiang Tianlu also took several steps back, their faces pale. It was obvious that this attack was also a huge drain on them. You guys are quite capable. There was a hint of praise in the purple-eyed cloud-winged tiger's voice, but more of it was a desire for power. But this is far from enough. Before he finished speaking, the purple-eyed cloud-winged tiger launched another attack. Its figure was like a ghost, and its speed was astonishingly fast. Every attack was aimed directly at the vital points of Nuo-Lin and Xiang Tianlu, as if it wanted to crush them completely on this open space. Facing the continuous attacks, Nuo-Lin and Xiang Tianlu could only try their best to resist. However, as time went on, their physical and spiritual strength were constantly depleted, but the purple-eyed cloud-winged tiger seemed to be tireless, and its attacks became more and more fierce. At this critical moment of life and death, there was an unyielding light in the eyes of Nuo-Lin and Xiang Tianlu. They knew very well that only by fighting to the death could they have a chance of survival. Every attack of the purple-eyed cloud-winged tiger was like thunder, with the power to tear apart space. Nuo-Lin and Xiang Tianlu could only rely on their tacit trust in each other and their indomitable will to barely hold on. Their figures kept shuttling back and forth in the open space, like two flames swaying in the strong wind, weak but never extinguished. 2.6 Xiangdianlu, we can't continue to be passive like this. We must find its weakness. Nuo-Lin's voice seemed a little hoarse in the turbulent airflow, but his eyes were unusually firm. Nodding to Tianlu, he knew that what Nuo-Lin said was absolutely right. So he took a deep breath, and the spiritual power in his body surged, as if it was going to break through the constraints of his body and reach a new realm. He quickly formed seals with his hands, and runes jumped on his fingertips, shining like stars. However, this time, he did not directly attack the purple-eyed cloud-winged tiger with the runes. Instead, he integrated them into his own body, allowing his strength to achieve a qualitative leap in a short period of time. Nuo-Lin, watch me, Xiang Tianlu growled, and his figure instantly became blurred, as if he had merged into one with the world. His speed was so fast that even the purple-eyed cloud-winged tiger felt a little pressure. Nuo-Lin was delighted when he saw this. He knew that this was Xiang Tianlu's unique skill and also his last trump card. Then, he no longer held back, and the ancient power in his body surged again. His eyes became deep, as if he could see through the essence of all things in the world. The two of them, one on the left and one on the right, launched a fierce attack on the purple-eyed cloud-winged tiger at the same time. Nuo-Lin's fist smashed into the chest of the purple-eyed cloud-winged tiger like a meteorite, and each punch carried the momentum of shattering mountains and rivers, while Xiang Tianlu transformed into a stream of light, shuttling around the purple-eyed cloud-winged tiger, and each attack was precise and deadly. The purple-eyed cloud-winged tiger roared continuously, feeling an unprecedented threat. There was a crazy light flashing in its purple eyes, as if it wanted to turn all obstacles into nothingness. Its wings flapped violently, and each flap was accompanied by a violent storm, uprooting the surrounding trees and raising dust that covered the sky and the sun. However, Nuo-Lin and Xiang Tianlu did not retreat. They seemed to have forgotten the pain and fatigue and only wanted to try their best to defeat the purple-eyed cloud-winged tiger. Their attacks became more and more fierce, and every collision seemed to tear the open space apart. You are really impressive, purple-eyed cloud-winged tiger's voice was filled with reluctance and anger. But this still cannot change your fate. Before he finished speaking, the purple-eyed cloud-winged tiger suddenly retreated violently, with a strange light flashing in its purple eyes. It flapped its wings suddenly, and a powerful energy wave surged out of its body, instantly enveloping Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu. This energy fluctuation was so powerful that it was suffocating, as if it was going to swallow up everything. Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu only felt huge amounts of pressure coming from all directions, and their bodies seemed to be crushed by this force. In this energy fluctuation that was enough to shake the mountains and rivers, Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu seemed to be drawn into an endless vortex, and the air around them seemed to solidify. Even time seemed to stop at this moment. Their bodies were under unimaginable pressure. Their bones made subtle but clear cracking sounds, and tiny beads of blood appeared on their skin. They were the essence of life squeezed out by the invisible force. "Hold on, Xiang Tianlu. We can't just give in like this." Nuo Lin's voice was squeezed out from his throat with difficulty, and every word seemed to be torn out from the depths of his soul with an unyielding will and firm belief. Xiang Tianlu's eyes remained bright under the pressure. He clenched his teeth, and the spiritual power in his body burned madly like an ignited flame, trying to break free from the restraints. His muscles swelled under the infusion of spiritual energy, as if every inch of his skin contained explosive power. "Nuo Lin, let's break through these shackles together," he roared at Tianlu, his voice echoing in the torrent of energy like a passionate war song that inspired each other's hearts. At this moment, the ancient power in Nuo Lin's body boiled again, and his eyes became as deep as the night sky, as if he could see into the most essential mysteries of the world. He took a deep breath, as if he wanted to absorb all the spiritual energy of the world into his chest, and then suddenly exhaled, accompanied by a deafening roar, and an indescribable power burst out from his body. This power intertwined with Xiang Tianlu's spiritual power, forming a dazzling light, like the brightest star in the night sky, instantly illuminating the open space shrouded in darkness. In the light, the figures of Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu became blurred, as if they had merged into one with the heaven and earth. Their power reached an unprecedented height at this moment. When the purple-eyed cloud-winged tiger saw this, a trace of fear flashed in its eyes. It had never seen such a powerful force. However, as the overlord of this forest, it will never give up easily. It spread its wings again, and this time, it was no longer a violent storm, but endless darkness, as if it was going to swallow up the entire world. But Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu were no longer afraid. They fought side by side, transformed themselves into light, and launched the final battle with darkness. In this space intertwined with light and darkness, every collision is accompanied by a deafening roar, and every confrontation seems to tear the world apart. Finally, after a fierce collision, the huge body of the purple-eyed cloud-winged tiger began to tremble, and its eyes gradually lost their light. The pair of purple wings that once made countless lives tremble also slowly drooped. Although Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu were covered in wounds, their eyes were shining with the joy of victory and endless pride. As the huge body of the purple-eyed, cloud-winged tiger fell to the ground with a loud bang, the dark atmosphere that permeated the surroundings instantly dissipated, and the sunlight once again penetrated the treetops, sprinkling on the two of them in patches, bringing a touch of long-lost warmth and tranquility. Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu smiled at each other. In that smile, there was both the relief of surviving the disaster and the cherishment of the deep friendship between them. "We did it, the road to heaven," Nuo Lin panted and said. His voice was weak but full of determination and gratitude. "Without your persistence, I might have collapsed long ago." Xiang Tianlu patted Nuo Lin on the shoulder, with a smile that was bitter and relieved. "It was you who awakened my potential, Nuo Lin. We have experienced life and death together, and this friendship is more precious than any treasure. The two decided to find a safe place to recuperate. After passing through the dense forest, they came to a hidden valley, which was surrounded by mountains with gurgling streams, and the air was filled with the faint scent of flowers and soil, creating a peaceful and tranquil scene. Under huge amounts of ancient tree, they found a small cave that was sheltered from the wind and decided to rest there for a while. The cave is dry and warm, and the walls are covered with moss, making it look full of vitality. Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu each found a corner to sit down and began to use their own cultivation methods to restore their strength. Time seemed to have slowed down here. Only the sound of the wind outside the cave and the sound of flowing streams intertwined into a melodious movement, accompanying them through this long recovery period. A few days later, as their wounds gradually healed, their mental and physical states also returned to their best. Nuo Lin's eyes sparkled with wisdom again, and Xiang Tianlu's muscle lines became clearer and full of power. They walked out of the cave and greeted the first rays of dawn, their hearts full of anticipation for the future. As their injuries healed, Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu embarked on their journey again, their hearts filled with a desire for novelty and a yearning for the unknown. They traveled among mountains and rivers, sometimes stopping by streams to listen to the gurgling sound of water and feel the rhythm of nature, sometimes climbing to the top of mountains to overlook the rolling sea of clouds and appreciate the magnificence of heaven and earth. The scenes of the past few days slowly unfolded before their eyes like a picture scroll, and every scene was breathtakingly beautiful. However, on a breezy afternoon, when they were strolling in a quiet valley, there were sudden roars from the distant mountains, and the mountains shook as if some ancient power was awakening. Immediately afterwards, an extremely dazzling light shot up from the top of the peak, cutting through the sky and illuminating the entire sky with colorful lights. "Look, a treasure has come out." Nuo Lin's eyes were as sharp as torches, and he instantly locked onto the source of the beam of light, his tone unable to conceal his excitement. Xiang Tianlu also looked solemn, but he could not hide his excitement. "We have to hurry. Such treasures are bound to be accompanied by huge amounts of risks." The two figures flashed and turned into two streams of light, rushing towards the mountain where the precious light was. When they reached the top of the mountain, they saw a spiritual plant emitting a soft light, growing quietly in the cracks of the rocks. Its leaves were crystal clear, as if containing endless vitality and energy. This was the legendary spiritual fairy lotus. Every petal contained the magical power to cleanse the marrow and strengthen the bones. However, just as they were about to go forward to pick them, a deafening roar sounded from not far away, and a giant beast covered with black scales, with red eyes and wings on its back, suddenly rushed out. It was the overlord of this mountain, the 10-dark demonic dragon. It is surrounded by a thick demonic aura, and every breath it takes seems to devour all life around it. Obviously, this Lingyun fairy lotus is the treasure it is guarding. A mere demon dragon dares to stop us? Nuo Lin snorted coldly, quickly forming seals with his hands, and the spiritual power around his body surged, transforming into a dazzling lightsaber, pointing directly at the dark-winged demon dragon. Xiang Tianlu was not to be outdone. He leaped up suddenly like a tiger rushing down a mountain, his fists whistling. Each of his punches carried the force of a mountain collapse and the earth splitting, aiming straight at the magic dragon's vital points. The dark-winged demon dragon roared continuously, spread its wings, and a strong wind blew. The demonic energy rolled, forming black storms that tried to draw the two people into it. Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu were agile, dodging left and right and launching attacks at the same time. Their lightsabers and fists intertwined, colliding with the claws and tail strikes of the magic dragon, creating dazzling sparks. Every confrontation made the surrounding air emit a sharp whistle, as if even the space was torn apart. Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu, on the top of this peak, launched a thrilling battle with the dark-winged demonic dragon. Every roar of the demon dragon shook the mountains. The flapping of its wings created a storm that swallowed up light like a black hole, shattering the surrounding rocks and ancient wood into pieces, turning them into debris all over the sky. Nual Lin's figure was graceful, shuttling through the storm like a ghost. The spiritual energy around him surged, transforming into streaks of light, which collided violently with the 127 sharp claws of the magic dragon. Every confrontation stirred up circles of spiritual energy, ripples visible to the naked eye. The space seemed to become fragile at this moment, and faint cracks appeared. "Umph! You monster! Do you know that today is your end?" Nual Lin shouted coldly, with unquestionable dominance in his words. He suddenly accelerated, like a meteor streaking through the night sky. Go straight to the 7-inch point of the magic dragon. Xiang Tianlu was like a raging wave in a storm. His fists were fierce and powerful, and each punch carried the momentum of shattering mountains and rivers, bombarding the hard scales of the demon dragon, making a deafening sound of metal clashing. Each of his strikes contained the ultimate pursuit of strength, as if he wanted to shatter every inch of the demon dragon's body. "Break it for me!" Xiang Tianlu roared, jumped up suddenly, and punched the demon's flank. Scales flew everywhere, and demonic energy overflowed. Because of this punch, cracks appeared on the wings of the demon dragon. The dark-winged demonic dragon became even more violent due to the pain. His eyes were as red as blood, and demonic energy was boiling around his body, as if he wanted to swallow up the world. It suddenly opened its huge mouth, and a jet of the demon's flame, as black as ink, spewed out, carrying destructive power, straight towards Nual Lin and Xiangtian Road. Nual Lin moved his body to the side, narrowly avoiding the demon's flame, but wherever the demon's flame passed, the rocks melted, the grass and trees turned to ashes, leaving behind a scorched earth, which showed how terrifying it was. His expression was solemn, knowing that the power of this demon dragon was far from what it seemed. "Join forces," Nual Lin shouted, and exchanged glances with Xiang Tianlu. The two men understood each other and changed their tactics instantly. Nual Lin's figure suddenly disappeared, and when he reappeared, he was above the magic dragon's head. He quickly formed seals with his hands, and the spiritual power in his body condensed into a bright beam of light, which smashed down and went straight to the magic dragon's head. Xiang Tianlu appeared at the side of the magic dragon like a ghost. His fists were as strong as a dragon, continuous, and each punch hit the magic dragon's vital points accurately. The devil dragon roared in pain, and the devil energy around it boiled to the extreme, as if it wanted to break free from the world that bound it. But Nual Lin and Xiang Tianlu did not flinch. Their attacks were like a violent storm, continuous and uninterrupted, forcing the demon dragon to retreat step by step until they reached the place where the Ling Yun immortal lotus was. Under the joint attack of the two, the magic dragon gradually showed signs of fatigue, but the arrogance and indomitable spirit that came from its ancient blood made it continue to struggle desperately. Every time Nual Lin's light column fell, it was like a punishment from heaven, causing the huge body of the demon dragon to tremble. Its scales looked dull under the light, and some even began to peel off, revealing the metallic flesh inside. "Today, you can forget about protecting this fairy lotus." Xiang Tianlu's voice was like thunder, echoing between the valleys. His fists became more and more fierce, and every blow seemed to shake the mountains and rivers. The scales of the magic dragon were like fragile porcelain under his fists, shattering and splashing out. The air was filled with a mixture of blood and demonic energy. The magic dragon seemed to feel the threat of death. It let out an unprecedented shrill roar, and the red in its eyes became more intense, as if two eternal flames were burning in them. Suddenly, its body began to swell, and the demonic energy around it became so dense that it materialized, forming a thick layer of black mist that temporarily separated Nual Lin from Xiangtian Road. "Be careful. It is planning a final counterattack." Nual Lin looked solemn, and used his spiritual power perception to the fullest, trying to penetrate the magic fog and lock the position of the magic dragon. Xiang Tianlu did not retreat, but advanced. He knew very well that he could not give the magic dragon any chance to breathe at this moment. Otherwise, once it completed some kind of metamorphosis or summoned a more powerful force, the consequences would be disastrous. Relying on his keen intuition about strength, he punched the magic fog again and again. Each punch was like a sharp blade, cutting through the magic energy, trying to find the true form of the devil. Roar! With a deafening roar, the magic dragon finally rushed out of the magic fog. Its body was even larger than before, with lightning-like light wrapped around it. It had integrated its own magic energy with some kind of power between heaven and earth, forming an even more terrifying attack power. Nuo-Lin and Xiang Tianlu rushed forward at the same time. Their figures seemed small but firm under the attack of the magic dragon. Nuo-Lin's spiritual power turned into blades of light, colliding with the lightning of the demon dragon, producing dazzling sparks. Every time they clashed, the air emitted a sharp whistle, as if even the space was being shaken. "Hold on, we will definitely win." Nuo-Lin's voice rang in Xiang Tianlu's ears with unquestionable firmness. When Xiang Tianlu heard this, a fierce look flashed in his eyes. He knew very well that this was a critical moment of life and death, and he could not afford to retreat even a little. He let out a low roar, and his body was like a wild horse that had broken free from its reins, rushing towards the demon dragon recklessly. His fists were as powerful as a violent storm, and each of his punches carried the momentum of shattering mountains and rivers, and hit the demon dragon fiercely. Under the joint attack of the two, the demon dragon became more and more violent. The lightning wrapped around its body raged like an angry snake. Every time it collided with Nuo-Lin's light blade, a deafening roar would erupt, as if even the heaven and earth were shaking. The air was filled with a strong mixture of demonic energy and spiritual power, which was suffocating. You monster, today is the day you die." Nuo-Lin's voice sounded particularly firm amid the roar. He shuttled across the battlefield like a ghost. Every move he made was precise and deadly. The light blade was like a sharp blade that cut through time and space, constantly leaving deep wounds on the body of the magic dragon. The demon dragon roared in pain, its huge body gradually staggering under the attacks of the two, but the indomitable spirit and arrogance that came from its ancient blood made it continue to struggle desperately. It suddenly opened its huge mouth, and a jet of the demon's flame as black as ink spewed out again, carrying destructive power straight towards Nuo-Lin and Xiang Tianru. However, this time Nuo-Lin and Xiang Tianlu did not choose to hide. They smiled at each other with determination flashing in their eyes. Xiang Tianlu suddenly jumped up like a tiger rushing down a mountain, his fist whistling as he went straight for the throat of the demon dragon. Nuo-Lin moved his body to the side, and a blade of light streaked across the sky like a meteor, piercing the heart of the demon dragon. Boom! With a deafening roar, the huge body of the magic dragon suddenly exploded in the air, and black demonic energy and blood splashed like a fountain, dyeing the entire valley black. At that moment, it seemed as if even the heaven and earth were trembling, and the air was filled with a strong smell of blood and demonic energy. When everything returned to calm, Nuo-Lin and Xiang Tianlu stood in the valley, their figures looking particularly tall in the afterglow of the setting sun. They smiled at each other, their eyes shining with the joy of victory and deep respect for each other. "We succeeded," Xiang Tianlu shouted excitedly, his voice echoing in the valley, carrying endless pride and ambition. Nuo-Lin smiled and nodded. He walked to the Lingyun fairy lotus that was emitting a soft glow and carefully picked it. This fairy lotus seemed to be a witness to their victory, emitting an even richer light, as if blessing them. Just as Nuo-Lin gently plucked the Lingyun fairy lotus and was about to share the hard-earned fruits of victory with Xiang Tianlu, something strange happened. The ancient seal that had been dormant in the depths of the valley was actually triggered at the moment the magic dragon fell. An ancient and powerful aura surged out from under the seal, bringing with it a heart-pounding pressure. Oh no, there might be an even more terrifying existence sealed under this seal. New Orleans' face suddenly changed. He quickly put the Lingyun fairy lotus into his arms and looked around vigilantly. Xiang Tianlu also had a solemn expression. He felt the powerful aura and had an ominous premonition in his heart. However, as a warrior, he never had the intention to retreat, and said in a deep voice, "No matter what it is, you and I will fight side by side. What is there to be afraid of?" Before he finished speaking, the stone walls around the valley began to crack. Black cracks spread out like a ferocious beast. With a roar, streams of black mist surged out from the cracks, quickly filling the entire valley and completely swallowing up the afterglow of the setting sun. Who is this? Xiang Tianlu was horrified. He had never seen such a strange and powerful sealing power. New Orleans' eyes were sharp. He knew that there was no time to think anymore, and he had to leave this place as soon as possible. However, at this moment, a low and hoarse voice echoed in the valley, Zhao Diheo, like a call from the underworld, making people tremble with fear. After 1,000 years of sealing, I am finally freed. You ants actually dare to disturb my deep sleep. You must be tired of living. As the voice fell, a black figure slowly walked out of the crack. The figure was tall and twisted, with black mist wrapped around it. His eyes were as deep as the abyss, revealing endless coldness and murderous intent. No matter who you are, since we have met you today, it is an opportunity for us to improve our strength. Nu Lin snorted coldly. He knew very well that escape was not the way of a warrior. Only by facing difficulties head-on can one break through himself. Xiang Tianlu was also full of fighting spirit when he heard this. He clenched his fists, and his joints made crisp sounds, as if telling of his inner determination and courage. Come on, let me see what methods you, an old monster who has been sealed for 1,000 years, have. Xiang Tianlu shouted, and his figure rushed straight towards the black figure like an arrow from a bow. Nu Lin also flashed and turned into a stream of light, fighting side by side with Xiang Tianlu. The two of them, one on the left and one on the right, were like two sharp swords, piercing the black figure's vital points. Suddenly, a thrilling battle broke out in the valley again. Nu Lin and Xiang Tianlu shuttled through the black mist. Every move they made contained all their strength and will, and they engaged in a fierce confrontation with the black figure. The black mist and spiritual power intertwined together, forming a series of strange pictures, as if even time and space were torn apart. Every collision was accompanied by a deafening roar, and the air was filled with a strong smell of blood and demonic energy, which made people's hearts palpitate. However, in this battle, Nu Lin and Xiang Tianlu did not retreat. Relying on their persistence in strength and trust in each other, they kept looking for the flaws of the black figure. Finally, in a fierce confrontation, they got the opportunity to break through. Nu Lin appeared on the side of the black figure like a ghost. He clenched his hands, concentrated his spiritual power to the extreme, and suddenly punched out, as if even time and space were shattered by this punch. At the same time, Xiang Tianlu also jumped up suddenly like a raging wave in a storm with a whistling fist and went straight to 380 degrees to take the heart of the black figure. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening roar, the black figure finally fell down under the joint attack of the two, turned into a black mist, and dissipated between heaven and earth. As the black figure disappeared, the black fog in the valley also gradually dissipated, revealing the sky dyed red by the afterglow of the setting sun. Nu Lin and Xiang Tianlu stood side by side. Their breathing was a little rapid, but their eyes were shining with excitement. It was such a thrilling battle. Nu Lin took a deep breath and sighed. Xiang Tianlu nodded, and his eyes scanned the surroundings. After confirming that the black figure had indeed disappeared, he breathed a sigh of relief. Yes, I didn't expect that such a powerful existence was sealed under this valley. However, thanks to him, our strength has been further improved. Nu Lin smiled and took out the Lingyun immortal lotus that was emitting soft light from his arms and handed it to Xiang Tianlu. This is your trophy, Brother Xiang. You take it first. Xiang Tianlu was stunned for a moment, then shook his head. No, Brother Na, you discovered this fairy lotus and you picked it, so you should take it first. The two smiled at each other and declined. Finally, Nu Lin suggested, how about this, we take it together and improve our strength together? Xiang Tianlu thought about it and felt that this was a good idea, so he nodded in agreement. They each took a petal from the fairy lotus and carefully put it into their mouths. As the petals melted, a warm and powerful force surged in their bodies, as if a constant source of spiritual energy was nourishing their bodies. Their cultivation base improved rapidly at this moment, as if even their souls were sublimated. When the last bit of spiritual power was absorbed, Nu Lin and Xiang Tianlu smiled at each other. They knew that their strength had reached a new level. Let's go, Brother Xiang. Let's continue on our journey. Nu Lin patted Xiang Tianlu's shoulder and said. Xiang Tianlu nodded, and the two of them set out on the journey out of the valley together. They walk along a winding path lined with lush trees and colorful wildflowers. The air was filled with the fragrance of earth and flowers. Soon, they came to a small river with clear water. The river gurgles, making a pleasant sound, as if telling the secrets of nature. They stopped and sat on the grass by the river, quietly admiring the beautiful scenery. I never thought that after experiencing such a thrilling battle, I could still see such a peaceful and beautiful scenery. Nu Lin said with emotion. Xiang Tianlu also nodded. Yes, the beauty in this world is always worth pursuing and protecting. The two sat quietly, enjoying this rare tranquility. However, they all know that there is still a long way to go and more challenges are waiting for them. But they also believe that as long as they join hands and face it together, nothing can stop them from moving forward. The sun gradually sank to the west, and a gorgeous sunset glow appeared on the horizon. Nu Lin and Xiang Tianlu stood up, brushed off the dust on their bodies, and set out on their journey again. Their figures gradually faded away in the afterglow of the setting sun, leaving behind only a string of firm footprints and laughter echoing in the valley. As the last rays of sunset were swallowed up by the night, Nu Lin and Xiang Tianlu set out on a more rugged mountain road. On both sides of the mountain road, ancient trees are towering, and their branches and leaves sway gently in the night wind, making rustling sounds like low whispers. The mountain road is getting more and more dangerous. We have to be careful, Nu Lin warned with sharp eyes, scanning the front. Xiang Tianlu nodded, his expression solemn. Indeed, the spiritual energy here fluctuates abnormally, and it seems that there is some unknown danger hidden. The two continued to move forward, and suddenly, there was a roaring sound coming from the front, as if huge rocks were rolling, or like a sign before a flash flood. They quickened their pace and soon arrived at a narrow valley. In the valley, a powerful spiritual energy fluctuation is raging, as if countless forces are colliding and intertwining with each other. Nu Lin and Xiang Tianlu looked at each other and saw surprise and vigilance in each other's eyes. Is this a storm formed by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth? Nu Lin frowned. He had never seen such a spectacular natural scene, nor had he ever felt such a strong fluctuation of spiritual energy. Xiang Tianlu shook his head, his expression solemn. No, this is not just the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It is also mixed with some ancient and mysterious power. We have to be careful with this. Before he finished speaking, the spiritual power storm suddenly intensified, as if countless invisible hands were tearing the space apart, sucking the two of them in. Nu Lin and Xiang Tianlu retreated violently, trying to escape from this horrible storm. However, the storm seemed to have a spirit, tightly wrapping around them and continuously releasing powerful spiritual power shocks. Nu Lin and Xiang Tianlu had to launch a counterattack. They were like two lightning bolts, shuttling and fighting in the storm. Boom! Nuo Lin punched out with a dragon-like wind and tremendous momentum, colliding fiercely with the spiritual power storm. However, the storm seemed endless and completely swallowed up his fist wind. Upon seeing this, Xiang Tianlu moved his body to the side and appeared on the other side of the storm like a ghost. He formed seals with his hands, and a bright light burst out from his palms and pierced straight into the core of the storm. "Break it for me," Xiang Tianlu shouted, and the light pierced through the storm like a sharp sword. However, the storm only paused slightly and then raged again. Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu continued to fight. Their figures were looming in the storm, and every collision was accompanied by a deafening roar. The storm seemed to have life, constantly changing its shape, trying to devour them completely. However, Nuo Lin and Xiang Tianlu did not retreat. They relied on their persistence and strength and trust in each other to continuously look for the flaws in the storm. Finally, in a fierce confrontation, they discovered the core of the storm. "Brother Xiang, let's attack there together," Nuo Lin shouted, and suddenly jumped up, rushing towards the core of the storm like a tiger descending from the mountain. Xiang Tianlu also flashed and followed closely behind. The two men, one on the left and one on the right, attacked at the same time, concentrating all their strength on this one strike. Boom! With a deafening roar, the storm was finally shattered by the joint attack of the two, turning into countless rays of spiritual power and dissipating in the night sky. When the storm broke, a gust of fresh air blew in, bringing with it the unique moisture and coolness of the mountains, which refreshed the two people. They smiled at each other, their eyes sparkling with the joy of victory. This storm is indeed very powerful. If we don't work together, it will be difficult to break it. Nuo Lin took a breath, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and said with emotion. Xiang Tianlu nodded, his eyes still solemn. "Yes, there seems to be some ancient secret hidden in this valley. We have to be careful." As the two continued to move forward, the scenery in the valley gradually became more strange. Wisps of mist are entwined on the ancient trees around, making it look like a fairyland. The flowers and plants on the ground also emit a faint light, as if every leaf and every flower contains endless vitality. "The spiritual energy here is so rich," Nuo Lin exclaimed. He could feel that the spiritual energy here was several times, even dozens of times, richer than that of the outside world. Xiang Tianlu frowned slightly. His intuition told him that although this place was beautiful, it was also dangerous. He held the sword tightly in his hand, ready to deal with any crisis that might arise at any time. The two walked along the depths of the valley and soon came to an open area. In the center of the open space, there is a huge amount of pool. The water in the pool is clear and you can see the bottom, but it exudes a faint chill. There are many strange plants growing around the pool. Their leaves are like sharp blades, flashing cold light. This pool seems a little unusual. Nuo Lin stared at the pool and said slowly. Xiang Tianlu nodded, walked to the edge of the pool, carefully stretched out his fingers, and gently touched the water. Suddenly, a biting chill came from his fingertips, making him shiver. "This pool of water is so cold." Xiang Tianlu retracted his fingers and said in surprise. Nuo Lin walked to Xiang Tianlu's side, staring at the pool with a frown on his face. "This pool seems to contain some kind of ancient power. We have to be careful not to touch it lightly." The two continued to move forward in the valley, and the scenery along the way became more and more bizarre. They saw many plants and animals they had never seen before and felt unprecedented vitality and spiritual fluctuations. However, they also know that behind the beauty and mystery here, there are endless crises. Just as they were about to walk out of the valley, suddenly, a strong vibration was heard. The whole valley seemed to be trembling, as if huge amounts of existence were awakening. "What's going on?" Nuo Lin's face changed drastically. He tightly gripped the sword in his hand and looked around vigilantly. Xiang Tianlu also looked solemn. He felt an unprecedented sense of oppression, as if some terrifying existence was approaching. "We have to leave here quickly," Xiang Tianlu shouted, pulling Nu All in and running out of the valley. However, just after they took a few steps, they felt a powerful force locking them firmly. The power seemed to come from the 9 heavens and also seemed to come from the 9 underworlds, making them unable to move at all. That force was like an invisible shackle that bound Nu All in and Xiang Tianlu tightly. Their figures paused in the air as if frozen in time. The air around became extremely heavy at this moment, and even breathing became difficult. What kind of power is this? Nu All in was horrified. He had never felt such a strong sense of restraint, as if even his soul was locked tightly. Xiang Tianlu's face was also pale. He felt an unprecedented crisis. He gripped the sword tightly, and the sword body trembled slightly, as if protesting against the oppression of this force. "We have to find a way to break free from this force," Xiang Tianlu shouted, the spiritual power in his body surging wildly, trying to break free from this invisible bondage. Nu All in was cheered up when he heard this. He took a deep breath, concentrated all his spiritual power into his fists, and suddenly blasted them into the air around him. Boom! With a deafening roar, Nu All in's fist wind swept out like a violent storm. However, the invisible force seemed indestructible and completely swallowed up his fist wind. Xiang Tianlu saw this and was unwilling to be outdone. He swung his sword. The sword light was like a dragon, and with tremendous momentum, he slashed towards the invisible power. "Zero, request flowers. Break it for me," Xiang Tianlu shouted, and the sword light collided with the force, making a deafening roar. However, the force only paused slightly, and then bound Xiang Tianlu tightly again. The two kept trying, but they were still unable to break free from the restraints of that power. Their spiritual energy was constantly being consumed, and their faces were becoming paler and paler. "If this goes on, our spiritual power will be exhausted," Nu All in said anxiously. He could feel that his spiritual power was draining away rapidly. Xiang Tianlu was also anxious. He knew very well that once their spiritual power was exhausted, they would be doomed. At this moment, Xiang Tianlu suddenly thought of something. He looked at Nu All in fiercely, his eyes flashing with determination. "Nu All in, do you still remember the Ling Yun, Xinlian, we took before? Its power has not been fully absorbed by us." Nu All in was moved when he heard this. He immediately put his skills into practice, mobilizing the remaining power of the immortal lotus in his body, and together with Xiang Tianlu, launched a final attack on the invisible force. Boom! With an earth-shaking roar, the power of the two finally tore a crack in the invisible power. They took the opportunity to flash and escape from the crack. The two had just escaped from the invisible shackles and had no time to catch their breath when their eyes suddenly lit up. A faint green light flickered at the end of the valley like a will-o'-the-wisp. Immediately afterwards, an ancient and powerful aura spread out, making people feel heavy in their hearts. What is this?" Nu All in's eyes were solemn. He could feel that the aura was definitely not something ordinary could possess. Xiang Tianlu also had a stern expression. He held the sword tightly, his eyes like torches, scanning the surroundings. Suddenly, his gaze fixed on the darkness at the end of the valley. There, a pair of dark green eyes were slowly opening, like two bright stars, yet filled with the breath of death. "It's a monster, a powerful monster," Xiang Tianlu shouted in a low voice, with a slight tremor in his voice, and he obviously felt the power of the monster. As Xiang Tianlu finished speaking, a huge figure slowly walked out of the darkness. It was a dark and phantom snake. Its body was dozens of feet long, and its scales shone with a faint green light, like sharp blades. Its eyes are as deep as the abyss, and one glance at them makes one feel as if they are about to fall into endless darkness.
Hello, everyone! As we wrap up this video, I want to share a quick note. I have a Patreon account. If you'd like to support me and enjoy on-demand audiobooks, you can become a Patreon member. Alternatively, you can check out my Google Drive link, which has 500 plus novel audiobooks available through my Ko-fi or Patreon shop. I appreciate your support.